Story 1. The man at mile marker 117. Realized the man in the road had no face. The air horn was already screaming and my hands were locked on the wheel. He was just standing there in my brights, middle of I-40 eastbound outside Amarillo. Reflective vest glowing a sick yellow. Arms limp. Head tilted like he was listening to the engine. I yanked the wheel. Trailer snaking. Coffee flying out of the cup holder. The rig drifted so close I swear my mirror brushed his shoulder. He didn't flinch. He didn't move at all. And when I checked the mirror, he wasn't there. Only empty asphalt, white dashes flashing under the trailer, and that long black Texas night. I told myself it was fatigue. 2 a.m., March 14th, 2023. 17 hours into a run I should have split over 2 days. Reefer humming behind me. Frozen chicken bound for Oklahoma City. Dash lights dim. GPS washed out my eyes every time I glanced at ETA. You start seeing things when you're tired. That's what we all say. Except 10 minutes later, at mile marker 117, my headlights found him again. Same reflective vest, same tilted head, same stillness. Only this time, he was turned toward me, like he'd been waiting for the sound of my Jake brake. I slammed both feet on the floor, feeling ABS chatter under my boots. The trailer shoved me forward, my chest crushed against the belt as 40 tons protested physics. Tires screamed. The smell of burning rubber turned the cab into a hot chemical throat. And he just watched. Didn't run, didn't gesture, didn't raise a hand. He was close enough this time that I saw what was wrong with his face. There wasn't one. Where features should have been, my lights hit something like wet frost on glass. Just pale, vague bulges. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. The reflective stripes of his vest cut clean across that blank oval, like someone had printed a safety pamphlet directly onto skin. My rig stopped 15 feet short of him. The GPS rebooted. Every screen in the cab clicked off for a heartbeat, then came back with a soft electronic sigh. The radio, which I'd left on local country, spat pure static that sounded almost like whispering filtered through a fan. The man at mile marker 117 took one slow step toward the hood. I threw it into first before the RPMs had even dropped and lurched forward, steering around him so sharp the trailer nearly kissed the guardrail. For a second, the world narrowed to my pulse and the writhing red needle of the tack. By the time I straightened out, the road behind me was clean again. No man, no vest, no blood, nothing. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I grabbed the mic off the dash. "Breaker, breaker, this is southbound 74 to any ears on 40 East near Amarillo," I said, voice higher than I wanted. "Anyone seeing a guy out on the asphalt? Mile marker about 117? A crackle. Then a familiar voice came back, thin and far away. 7-4, this is Dusty Jack. You running that midnight chicken again, brother?" Dusty was running flatbed out of Dallas, someone I'd met enough times at the Flying J to call a friend. My shoulders relaxed an inch. "Yeah," I said. "You anywhere close to here?" "Nah, I'm sitting just outside Flagstaff, freezing my ass off," he chuckled. "Why, you picking up company out there?" I swallowed, watching the reflective posts whip by. "Think I almost hit some guy in a vest," I said. "Twice." The line went quiet, long enough I thought the radio died. "Say that again," Jack said, voice different now. "Where exactly?" "Mile marker 117. Maybe a couple miles either side. You heard anything on the scanner? Wreck by the time IK, road crew, anything?" "Pull over," he said immediately. "Like, right now, Kyle. You pull that damn rig over somewhere safe." I almost laughed. "You telling me to park on the shoulder because I saw a jaywalker?" "I'm telling you, we buried a driver out there last year," he snapped. "Construction flagger. Night shift. Some drunk in a pickup took him out at mile marker 117. They never found his head. You hear me? Never found it. A cold moved through my spine, like someone was opening a zipper from tailbone to skull. He wore a vest. Jack continued, words coming faster now. Same company they used this whole stretch. Guys swear they keep seeing him in the lane, never in their mirrors. State troopers won't talk about it. They moved the work zone, but they never fixed that mile. I stared at the odometer. I'd just crossed 119. And the GPS, for the third time that hour, froze, flickered, and snapped back. Estimated time of arrival, 2:47 a.m. Distance to destination, 172 miles. Distance to next turn, 0.0. The map showed my rig icon sitting on a gray line that went nowhere. No ramps, no side roads, just a gray vein cutting through black emptiness. Jack, I said slowly, you ever had your GPS just not show the road? Static hissed in my ear. For a second, under the noise, I heard something else, a wet dragging sound, like boots full of water. Kyle, I want you to do exactly what I say, Jack said finally. You seeing exit signs? No, I whispered. And I wasn't. The green glow that should have pulsed every few miles was gone. The only things marking progress were the pale pops of mile markers sliding by on my right. Then, too quickly, the same bent post, the same patch of darker asphalt where some old stain never quite washed out. And in the lane, framed perfectly in my high beams, the faceless man in the vest. This time, he was closer, standing dead center like he owned the entire interstate. Back, hunched, hands hanging in front of him like they were heavy. His vest gleamed. The blank skin of his face shimmered with some greasy reflection that wasn't my light at all. He took one step toward the cab as I approached, then another. I didn't touch the brake. Some mindless animal part of me understood that stopping was the worst thing I could do. Jack, I breathed into the mic. He's back. The radio answered with a chorus. It wasn't just static this time. Voices mashed together, layered so deep I couldn't separate them. Men, women, something that sounded like a child crying through a drainage pipe. Words in English, Spanish, something I didn't recognize, all flattened into a wet, buzzing sludge. Underneath it all, a single phrase rose up, clear as if the speaker was sitting in my passenger seat. Slow down. My foot pressed harder on the accelerator. The rig shuddered, engine protesting the grade as the speedometer climbed. The man didn't move out of the way. At 70, he filled half my windshield. At 75, he was a smear of yellow and gray and blankness. At 80, he vanished under the hood. Every instinct screamed to look in the mirror. I didn't. I kept my eyes locked on the black ribbon of highway until tears blurred the white lines into streaks. The reefer thumped once, hard enough to rattle the cabinets. Something knocked from inside the trailer wall. 3 deliberate hits like someone trapped their fists on the metal. Left, right, left. Don't you dare stop, Jack was yelling, his voice somehow punching through the chaos. Kyle, you listening? You keep going till you see a damn exit, you hear me? I've been going, I said, throat dry as chalk. I've been going. I glanced down. The odometer hadn't moved. 20 minutes, maybe 30, and I had not gained a mile. But the markers kept coming. Same dented posts, same dirty snow patch on the shoulder that shouldn't have survived this long into March. Same splash of something dark climbing the guardrail, too low to be graffiti. My eyes were starting to itch. The air in the cab felt thicker, like the AC was pulling humidity from somewhere it shouldn't exist. My breath left faint trails, like the cab had dropped 30 degrees without the gauge noticing. Kyle, Jack's voice was quieter now. You remember that story about the headless flagger? Hard to forget, I managed. They said the guy never saw it coming, he said. Truck hit him at 70. Threw his body one way, his vest another. They found him by tracking where the blood steamed in the cold. Drivers swear when they hit that mile now, something pulls at their speed, like the road wants it. The reefer thumped again. This time it didn't sound like fists. It sounded like something dragging its palms along the inside walls. A slow, exploratory stroke, as if mapping the dimensions. Jack, it feels like I'm stuck, I said. Like the road's on a loop. Quiet on the line. You are, he said eventually. Everyone is, when it gets them. When what gets them? He didn't answer. Instead, a new voice slid into the cab. Not from the radio, from behind me. Close enough I felt the breath on the back of my neck, cold and damp, smelling like wet concrete and old diesel. You didn't stop. I couldn't turn my head. Every muscle in my neck had gone rigid, fused to my spine. My hands were claws on the wheel. In the corner of the windshield, the reflection of the sleeper's dark doorway showed a shape standing behind my seat, tall enough that its head nearly brushed the ceiling, a ghost of high-vis yellow. The faint outline of a vest. No face, just a bright oval of nothing, like someone had carved out a piece of the world where a face should be and left a hole that light refused to fill. You kept going, it said, voice like tires hissing on wet pavement, slow, stretched words. He didn't. I'm sorry, I whispered, not sure who I was apologizing to. The shape tilted its head, just like it had in the road. The reefer went silent. I realized suddenly that I couldn't hear the engine either, or the wind, or the faint whine of the tires. Only my breathing, ragged and shallow, and the thick, wet syllables of the thing behind me. Everyone slows down for him, it said. Everyone but you. The mile marker slid by. I shut my eyes. You want me to stop? I asked. Silence. You want me to die out here like he did? I said, voice cracking. Is that it? You want another one? A touch on my shoulder. Light. Almost gentle. It burned like dry ice. I want what he had, the thing said. He had time. My watch was ticking loud enough to be obscene. I forced one hand off the wheel and looked. The second hand was spinning. Not ticking. Spinning. Whipping around the face in a constant blur. So fast the glass vibrated against my skin. The digital clock on the dash rolled like a slot machine. 2:14, 3:57, 9:02, 12:41. Dates flickering with it. March, April, June. Years hopping. Then everything stopped. The engine roar slammed back into my ears. The reefer hummed normal again. My GPS blinked, glitched, then snapped to a new screen. Next exit, 1 mile. Distance to destination, 112 miles. Time, 3:06 a.m. I jerked my head around, finally, ignoring the scream in my neck. Empty cab. No vest. No blank oval. Only my jacket hanging from the hook, swaying slightly like something had just let go of it. Kyle? Jack said, tinny but real. You still there, man? I swallowed, every nerve buzzing like I'd been holding on to a live wire. I'm here, I said. You're coming up on exit 121, he said. You see it? Lights bloomed ahead. A real green sign this time, reflective and solid. Exit 121, FM 1259, Service Road. Yeah, I said, barely breathing. Take it, he said. Get off that interstate. Hit the Loves. Park in the far corner and don't you get back on till the sun's been up a few hours. You hear me? I did exactly that. Pulled into the truck stop, killed the engine, and sat in the sudden quiet while dawn leaked pink over the pumps. My logbook said I'd been driving 1 hour since Amarillo. My body felt like I'd been out there for days. I went inside, found a table in the back near the showers, and stared at my coffee until it went cold. On the TV in the corner, local news played with the volume down. Traffic alert banner across the bottom. Fatality on I-40 eastbound near mile marker. 117. Expect delays. The footage was from the dark, from maybe an hour before. Hazard lights pulsed like a string of angry eyes in the rain. A state trooper's cruiser idled on the shoulder, blue and red washing over twisted metal. A white pickup sat crushed against the guardrail, front end folded like paper. In front of it, half under a tarp, was the unmistakable bulk of a person. The camera panned just enough to catch the edge of something on the asphalt, a reflective yellow strip, a vest. The timestamp in the corner read 2:02 a.m. I checked my logbook again. At 2:02 a.m., according to every piece of paper that mattered, I was 3 miles past mile marker 117. But in my memory, I was still there. Engine silent. Time broken. A hand on my shoulder that burned all the way into the bone. I finished my coffee with shaking hands, went back to the rig, and opened the trailer just to prove to myself everything was normal. The cold hit me like a slap. Boxes stacked just the way they'd been loaded. No blood, no footprints. Except in the frost that had filmed over the metal wall, someone had drawn a shape with one dragging finger. An oval, blank, featureless, just big enough to be a face. I took another route that night. I still drive. I still run that stretch of I-40 sometimes, but I don't slow down near mile 117. And I don't look too closely at the men in vests working the lane. Not anymore. Sometimes when the radio goes to static for no reason and the GPS glitches, I feel a cold breath on the back of my neck and hear that dragging, wet voice somewhere behind me. You didn't stop. And every mile after, the clock runs just a little bit faster. Story number 2. Dead air on Channel 19. By the time the dead trucker answered me on Channel 19, the wreck was already blocking 3 lanes, and the smoke tasted like burned hair. I was crawling westbound on I-80 in Nebraska, a line of red brake lights stretching ahead like a wounded animal's spine. Midnight, November 5th, 2022. Freezing rain turning the interstate into black glass. Dispatch had warned us about a multi-vehicle pileup near mile marker 312, but you never really understand the scale till you feel 40 tons sliding every time you touch the pedal. The smell hit first. Even with the vents closed, it pushed into the cab. Scorched rubber, hot antifreeze, and something sweeter underneath that my brain refused to name. Up ahead, blue strobes flickered through the sleet. A trooper's cruiser sat sideways, blocking the right lane. Beyond it, the vague hulks of twisted trailers glistened in my headlights. I picked up the mic, thumb pressing the talk button more out of habit than anything. Breaker 19, this is westbound 43. Anyone got eyes on what's going on up there? I said. You boys stuck same as me? Silence. The usual CB chatter, jokes, complaints, weather reports, was gone. Channel 19 was pure empty hiss. It made the inside of the cab feel too big. I tried again. 43 to any drivers between mile 307 and 313 on I-80 westbound. You all shut down for this wreck or what? That's when the dead air clicked. Literally. Like someone flipped a switch. The static cut clean off. For a second I thought the radio had died. Then a voice came through, so clear it sounded like the guy was sitting in my passenger seat. Yeah, we're shut down, he said. Real mess up here. Relief loosened my shoulders. Copy that, I said. What's it look like, brother? News said a few four-wheelers and a couple rigs. That about right? A pause. Few more than that, the voice said finally. You'll see soon. Something in his tone prickled the hairs on my arms. Calm, flat. No cussing, no irritation. Just a tired resignation, like he'd seen this movie 100 times. "Name's Rick," he added after a beat. "Run as Midnight Rider. You local?" "Nah," I said, easing off the brake as traffic inched forward. "Name's Leo, out of Cheyenne. Just trying to get this paper load to Omaha and put my ass in a motel bed." A chuckle crackled over the speaker. "Hope you got enough hours," he said. "Gonna be a long night." Another odd thing, I hadn't given him my handle or company. My truck was unmarked, no name on the doors, the kind of detail you feel in your gut before your brain catches up. "You with one of the wrecked rigs?" I asked, watching the hazard lights ahead swell and shrink through the sleet. "In a manner of speaking," he said. Right then, my headlights swept over the first wreck, a pickup crushed under the tail of a tanker, front end flattened so completely it looked like a toy someone had stomped. The windshield was a spiderweb of cracks, gray airbag frozen mid-burst. Red taillights from the next car in line glowed weak through a fog of smoke. The trooper's cruiser loomed larger. He was out in the road, waving his flashlight to funnel traffic to the left lane. His raincoat flapped in the wind, reflective tape flashing like frantic Morse code. "Jesus," I muttered. "You passing the tanker now?" the voice on the radio said. I froze with my foot on the clutch, because I was. He described each wreck before my headlights got there. Blue sedan with the back end peeled open like a can. 2 bodies inside, 1 halfway out the window. "That's next," he said. Then the white Cascadia jackknifed across lanes 2 and 3. "Watch your mirrors, she's still leaking diesel." I stared out at the chaos. He was right. About everything. "Where you sitting at, Rick?" I asked slowly. "Can't be more than a truck or 2 ahead, if you're seeing all this." "Don't worry about me," he said softly. "Just keep your wheels turning, best you can. Don't stop unless they make you." A shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with the cold. Up ahead, the state trooper pointed directly at my cab, then jabbed toward the far left, like he wanted me hugging the median. I nodded, shifted, and eased around the tanker, my trailer tires kissing the rumble strips. The blue sedan came into view, back end torn off. Trunk folded into the back seat, glass everywhere. A woman's limp hand dangled out of the shattered side window, wedding ring catching my brights with a little obscene sparkle. Static buzzed overhead, soft as flies. "They still breathing?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Not for long," the voice said. "Jesus, man," I snapped. "Bit cold, don't you think?" He sighed, a sound full of age. "I'm just telling you what already happened," he said. "Nothing cold about facts." Traffic lurched, stopped, lurched again. A fire engine's wail rose behind me, Doppler effect bending through the storm. Orange cones, flares burning blue in the wet. I inched past the jackknifed Cascadia, its trailer ripped open to vomit a confetti of cardboard boxes. That's when I saw the truck beyond it. White Kenworth, nose buried under the tail of a flatbed. Cab crumpled like tin foil. The windshield was a gaping hole, edges gleaming with broken glass. Inside, tangled in the wreck, was what was left of the driver. His chest was pinned against the steering wheel. His face was turned toward the hole where the glass had been, what remained of his eyes staring at nothing. Blood webbed the interior in thin, elegant strings, like someone had blown it from a straw. The side of the cab was visible just long enough for my brights to catch the faded lettering. Midnight Rider Trucking. Under it, in smaller letters, a name in vinyl, R. Hawthorne. "Is that you?" I asked, before the truck slid out of sight behind me. The radio crackled. "Yeah," he said quietly. "That'd be me." For a second, the world went weirdly far away. The storm, the troopers, the hiss of sleet, everything retreated behind a glass wall. My hands moved on the wheel, like they belonged to someone else. You said you're out of Cheyenne, he continued, filling the silence. Take exit 300 when you get there, Leo. Don't keep west on 80 tonight. I'm not even close to 300, I said. Still at 312. I can see the sign. Yeah, he said. For now. I swallowed hard. You messing with me? I asked. Because if this is some sick joke... Look left, he interrupted. Against my better judgment, I did. Past the median, on the eastbound side, traffic crawled in the opposite direction. A pair of headlights flashed briefly through the flurries, glaring directly into my cab as they hit a dip. For half a second, in that white glare, I saw the wreck again. Only this time, the Kenworth's cab wasn't crumpled. It rolled past me, pristine, Midnight Rider trucking logo, fresh and clean. Behind the wheel, in that snapshot of light, a man about my age glanced up, eyes meeting mine through the storm. Dark hair, stubble, a cigarette burning between his fingers. Then the dip was past, and the view snapped back to reality. Wrecked cab, flares, troopers, twisted metal. I whipped my head forward so fast my neck popped. Tell me what you saw, Rick said quietly. Nothing, I lied. Try again. I gripped the wheel. Truck like yours, I forced out. From the other side, clean. Driver looked at me. Then it was gone. He exhaled, static carrying the sound like wind in dead leaves. Yeah, he said. That's about how it starts. How what starts? Bleed through, he said. Time doesn't like what happened to me out here. Road keeps trying to run it again. See if it can land on something different. Some nights my truck makes it through. Most nights. He trailed off. The westbound lanes finally opened fully ahead. Whatever wrecks remained had been pushed to the shoulder, leaving a clear, if slick, path. I rolled on the throttle, easing up to 40, then 45. The CB hissed softly. Why are you talking to me? I asked. Out of all the drivers on this road, why me? You called out on 19, he said. Nobody else did tonight. That's it? I said. That's all it takes? He chuckled. You ever notice how quiet the CB's got in the last few years? He asked. Guys run with Bluetooth and Spotify. Don't turn the radio on unless there's a way station coming up. Silence makes it easier for the wrong kind of voices to slip in. You left a door open, Leo. I walked through. The digital clock on my dash read 12:08 a.m. I checked it again a minute later. 12:08 a.m. Hey, Rick, I said slowly. What time you got? Hard to say, he answered. Been stuck at the moment I died for longer than I can remember. Clock on my dash says 11:42. Been saying that since my lungs stopped. The pain in my chest started as a dull ache, like heartburn. Grew sharper with every breath, spreading up into my shoulder. I swallowed. You said take exit 300, I said. Why? Because if you don't, the road's gonna push you west with me, he said softly. It's getting colder, right? Harder to breathe. I hadn't mentioned that. I hadn't said anything about the way the condensation was creeping up along the inside of my windshield, frosting it from the edges inward. The defroster was on full blast, fans roaring, but it didn't make a dent. Pull-off's got a small truck stop, he continued. Run down Little Sinclair with 3 diesel pumps. Old guy named Hank runs the grill. He'll give you coffee that tastes like burned dirt and a cheeseburger that'll fight you all the way down. How the hell would you know that if you died out here? I snapped. Because I used to stop there every run, he said. And because some nights, when the bleed through gets real bad, I still do. Place drifts in and out of the crack, like you will, if you're not careful. The world outside my windows was changing. Slowly. So slowly I might have missed it if fear hadn't made me sensitive to every shift. The flurries had thickened into a white curtain. Tail lights ahead were gone. No brake lights, no lane markers. Nothing but a tunnel of wind and snow. My own headlights bouncing back from a wall of white. Traffic just disappeared, I said. Where'd everybody go? Don't worry about them, he said. Worry about yourself. The pain in my chest pulsed in time with the wipers. My breath came short, each inhale tasting like cold iron. You having trouble remembering your last clear day? He asked suddenly. I blinked. What? The last day that felt normal, he said. No weird shadows in your mirrors. No time jumps on your log. No dreams about accident footage you've never actually seen. You got one? Images flooded my head uninvited. My first run 5 years ago. Shaky hands on the wheel. Proud of my fresh CDL. The time I'd woken up at a rest area in Wyoming, convinced someone had been standing outside my sleeper, only to find nothing but a single wet footprint on the step. The night in Iowa, when my logbook showed an extra 30 miles, I had no memory of driving. I don't know, I said. Yeah, he said. That's what I thought. The GPS chimed. Recalculating, the synthetic female voice said. New route. Continue straight for 66 miles. I laughed, a bark that came out high and thin. Cute, I said. Real cute. Ignore it, Rick said sharply. Look for the exit signs. You still see them? I peered into the blizzard. Up ahead, faint through the white-green glow, emerged. Exit 300, Woodridge. The letters were wrong, crooked, tilted, some missing, as if they'd been half scraped off. But it was there. Yeah, I breathed. I see it. Take it, he said. Signal early, don't overshoot, it'll fight you. The road surface changed under my tires, from slick asphalt to something rougher, older. The steering wheel jerked in my hands like the lanes had shifted. The sensation of momentum swelled, like I was rolling downhill even though the grade was flat. The pain in my chest flared hot. The smell of burned hair came back, stronger than before. It's not going to let me go, I said through gritted teeth. It already did, he answered. You just haven't gotten there yet. Doesn't make sense, part of me thought. The rest didn't care. I flipped on my blinker, watched it tick green on the dash, and eased toward the ramp. Something in the dark pulled back. That's the only way I can describe it. Like a pressure you didn't know was there, suddenly lifting. The blizzard thinned. Tail lights reappeared ahead, faint but real. The rumble strip vibrated under my right tires, reassuring as a heartbeat. I hit the ramp. The CB exploded with noise. E-up, people. Emergency crews on scene, stay in your lane. Anybody know how far this mess stretches? Damn four-wheelers can't. Voices. A dozen of them. 100. All talking over each other. That chaotic CB chorus I'd grown used to over the years. I pulled onto the overpass and eased to a stop on the shoulder. Looked down. The westbound lanes of I-80 were a river of crawling vehicles, hazard lights blinking in the sleet. The wreck was visible in patches between them. The tanker, the blue sedan, the jackknifed Cascadia. But no white Kenworth, no Midnight Rider, just a smear of scorched asphalt where something big had burned a long time ago. The clock on my dash read 12:26 a.m. My logbook showed I'd advanced 14 miles in 18 minutes. The pain in my chest ebbed, leaving behind a hollow ache. I picked up the mic. Midnight Rider, I said. You still with me? Static. Just static. Then, faintly, buried under it. Good choice, Leo. I gripped the mic tight enough to creak the plastic. What happens if I'd stayed on? I asked. What happens to the ones who don't take the exit? The answer came not from the radio, but from below. For a second, just a second, the westbound lanes flickered. Headlights doubled, then tripled, ghost images sliding out of sync. I saw a version of I-80 empty and black. No cars, No flares. A version with the wreck stretched half a mile, trucks piled like a giant killer had kicked them. A version where my own rig lay on its side, in the median, trailer split, my body half through the windshield, eyes open and full of snow. Then the blink passed, and there was only the real road again. The real wreck. The real weather. On the radio, a different driver's voice came through, laughing with forced bravado. "Man, y'all hear that? Channel 19 just went dead as a grave for like a minute," he said. "Thought my radio crapped out." "Same here," another said. Whole stretch went quiet. Creeped me out. "Any of you hear a guy calling himself Midnight Rider?" I asked. Silence. Then, from somewhere deep in the noise, an older voice spoke. "Haven't heard that handle in years," he said. "Fella wrapped his Kenworth up bad out here back in '06. Fire so hot they said the steel ran like water. Killed him outright. Some boys used to say they'd hear him on 19 on bad nights, warning about ice and pileups." He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "Old-timer's tale," he added. "Radio ghost story. You know how it is." I set the mic down gently, pulled off the overpass, followed the signs to the tiny Sinclair truck stop, just like he'd said. Hank was behind the counter, grizzled and squinting at a little TV. The coffee tasted like burned dirt. The burger fought me all the way down. At 3 a.m., I went back outside. My trailer was rimed with a thin layer of ice, sleet ticking softly on the metal. As I walked past the sleeper window, my own reflection looked back. Tired eyes, weak old beard, hood up. For just a second, another face overlapped mine. A man my age with dark hair and a cigarette between his fingers, sitting in the driver's seat of a white Kenworth. Eyes tired, but not unkind. He nodded once. Then the reflection broke. "Radio ghost story," I told myself as I climbed into the bunk. "Just a CB legend. Doesn't explain why my GPS logs from that night show a 6-minute segment where my truck was recorded traveling westbound at 70 miles an hour. On a closed stretch of interstate, through the center of an accident scene that timeline says didn't exist anymore. I keep Channel 19 on now, all the time. I listen to the stupid jokes, the insults, the empty talk, because silence on that channel doesn't mean peace. It means doors are opening. And one of these nights, when the weather turns and the smell of burned hair creeps in again, I know I'm going to hear that calm, flat voice come back through the dead air. "Yeah," he'll say, "real mess up ahead." And he won't just be talking about the road. Story number 3. The extra weight at the weigh station. By the time the scale said my empty trailer weighed 86,000 pounds, the guy in the DOT booth stopped looking human. I'd already rolled through the weigh station twice that night. First time, coming east on I-10 into Louisiana, the pre-pass transponder on my windshield beeped green and told me I could bypass. Nice and easy. Second time, couple hours later, same station was lit up like Christmas, and the sign flashed, "All trucks must enter." Fine. Sometimes they do a blitz. You grumble, you roll, you deal with it. What you don't expect is for the numbers to stop making sense. I was hauling air. Deadhead since Beaumont, running light to pick up a steel load near Baton Rouge. My bill of lading was blank. Trailer was empty enough to echo when I shut the doors. Truck, fuel, gear, me. I should have been around 32,000 tops. The scale had read 40. "Bit heavy for empty, driver," the DOT guy had said over the speaker, staring at his monitor. "You sure that box is clean?" "I was in it myself," I'd said. "You want me to open up? We can tap dance in. There together." He didn't laugh. "Pull around back," he'd said instead. "Pop the doors. Let's see." So I did. Around the scale house, gravel popping under my tires. Doors swung open with the familiar metallic groan. I grabbed my flashlight just to be thorough and climbed up into the box, boots echoing on the aluminum floor. Nothing. No pallets, no leftover freight, not even a loose strap. Just the faint smell of old plastic and diesel, scuff marks from 1,000 forgotten loads, and the beam of my light disappearing into the dark toward the nose. "See?" I said, hopping back down. "Empty as my savings." The officer, stocky guy, mid-50s, nameplate reading Harris, shined his own light inside anyway. His face stayed professional, but I saw something flicker in his eyes when the beam found only dust. "All right," he said finally. "Close it up. Run the scale again. Maybe we got a malfunction." Second pass. They had me stop with just the tractor on the pad. "Steer at 11, drives at 12.5, Harris muttered, reading off his screen. "Reasonable. Now roll until just your trailer's on there." I did. Sitting there, brakes set, watching the scale house through the rain-streaked windshield, I saw him frown. "Trailer's at 28, he said over the intercom. "Add it up. That's 51. Still heavy for empty, but not a violation. Get that box checked by your shop driver. Something's off." The light turned green. I rolled out, shook it off, chalked it up to calibration ghosts, and told myself I'd let maintenance have a look when I got home. Couple hours later, after a wrong turn and a detour thanks to construction, my GPS cheerfully told me I'd be passing that same way station again. Different direction. I stared at the map. Impossible. Some logical part of my brain protested. You don't loop back past the same station like that unless you're trying. But there it was. The little way icon, the familiar off-ramp, the green and white sign looming up through the night rain. Open. Mandatory. "Ah, come on," I muttered, flipping on my blinker. The pre-pass stayed dark. As I rolled onto the ramp, a heaviness settled into the cab. Not metaphorical, literal. The engine strained harder than it should have on the gentle incline. The steering felt sluggish, like I'd picked up a crosswind I couldn't see. I told myself it was paranoia. Told myself a lot of things. The way station came into view, sodium lights turning the wet pavement into a yellow mirror. The sign instructed left lane scale, right lane inspection. The scale lane arrow blinked like a tired eye. No other trucks, no idling lines, no parked rigs, just me and the empty pad. "Back so soon?" Harris's voice crackled as I pulled up. "That you, driver?" His silhouette stood in the glass of the scale house. Same stocky build, same baseball cap. I picked up the mic. "Guess I missed you," I said, forcing a chuckle. "Hope you fixed that scale." "We did," he said. I eased forward until the reflex of 100 runs through way stations told me all my axles were on the pad. The truck felt wrong, like the suspension was bottomed out, every bump transmitting straight to my spine. The dash squeaked in a tone I'd only ever heard under full heavy load. "Hold there," he said. I watched him bend over his screen. His shoulders stiffened. "Driver," he said slowly, "what's your gross vehicle weight supposed to be right now?" I swallowed. "Empty trailer," I said. "Fuel tank's about 3/4. 32,000, maybe 33 if I've somehow gained a few cheeseburgers." Silence. Then, very carefully, "Our scale says you're at 86,410. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It burst out of me, too loud in the cab. "Yeah, okay," I said. "You want to come out here and count the invisible elephants in my box, or should I?" He didn't answer, didn't move, just stared at the readout. The radio crackled again. "Pull around back," he said, voice different now, tight. "Very slowly. Don't hit the brakes hard. We're going to check that trailer again. Leave your engine running." The heaviness got worse as soon as I rolled off the pad. The driveway around the scale house had a slight slope. In any other situation, it would have been nothing. Tonight, it felt like dragging a dead planet behind me. I had to drop a gear just to keep moving. I could feel the suspension protest, hear the faint complaint of metal under strain. Adrenaline hit. Because no matter what the scale said, physics shouldn't lie. I shouldn't feel loaded when I wasn't. Behind the scale house, the same gravel lot waited. Same orange cones, same yellow lines. But something was off in a way I couldn't name. The shadows fell wrong. The night felt thicker, as if the rain had weight. Harris met me at the back. He'd brought another officer this time. Younger, tall, nervous eyes that kept flicking to my trailer like he expected it to explode. "Pop the doors," Harris said. I climbed down, hands slick on the latch. "Look," I said. "I swear to you there's nothing in there. I don't know what your scale's doing, but pop the doors," he repeated, not unkindly. "Please." The cold in his eyes more than his tone made my skin go tight. I threw the latch. The doors swung open. My flashlight beam cut into that familiar aluminum vault. Empty. No pallets. No freight. Just scuff marks and rivets, and the echo of my own breath. A curl of fog rolled from the floor, like chilled air escaping a freezer. Harris shined his own light, jaw tight. "Nothing," he said. "Yes, sir," I said, same as last time. But the young officer wasn't looking into the trailer. He was looking at the ground, just under the lip. His light caught it, an impression in the wet gravel. Not a footprint, more like a series of indentations, spaced evenly, each the size of a dinner plate. 4 in a row, then a drag mark, then 4 more, leading straight under my trailer and disappearing into darkness. "Those weren't there when I walked up," he whispered. Harris followed his beam. For the first time, the older man's composure cracked. "Get back in your truck," he said abruptly. "Now." "What?" I blinked. Did I do something wrong? "Just do it," he snapped. "Engine on. Stay in the cab. Don't get out until I tell you." The young officer took a step backward, never taking his eyes off the underside of the trailer. "Sir," he said softly. "It's breathing." My heart stuttered. I didn't want to look. I looked anyway. In the gap between trailer and ground, shadows pulsed in a slow rhythm, like something huge was expanding and contracting in there, drawing the night in and out. The air smelled suddenly of damp earth and something coppery, like old coins held too long in a sweaty hand. I backed toward the cab. My boots felt heavier with every step. By the time I climbed in, each rung on the ladder might as well have been 100 pounds. My thighs burned. My breath came out in white puffs, even though the Louisiana night was a humid stew. I slammed the door, locked it without thinking, and sat there shaking while the engine idled rough. Rough like it was under strain, like it was trying to move something it wasn't built to move. The radio crackled again. Not the CB. The way station's private channel. "Driver, this is Officer Harris," the speaker in the dash said. "Do not exit your vehicle. Do you understand?" "Yeah," I said, throat tight. "I understand. So maybe you want to tell me what the hell is going on with my weight." On the other side of the glass, the 2 officers circled my trailer. Their flashlights stabbed into the dark. Shadows shifted along the undercarriage, jigging and twitching in shapes that didn't match the beams. "Ever run this station before tonight?" Harris asked instead of answering. "Couple times," I said. "Why?" "You hear about the collapse?" he said. "No." 2 years back," he said. "Old underground drainage tunnel gave way under the back lot. Took half the parking with it. One of your brothers was sleeping back there in his rig when the asphalt cracked. Truck went nose first into the hole. Trailer too." He paused. "Never recovered the body." The engine shook. A deep resonant shudder that rattled the coins in my cup holder. Sinkhole? I said. That's terrible. But what does that have to do with... It wasn't a sinkhole. The young officer's voice cut in, closer to the mic than he should have been. Not the way you're thinking. The tunnel wasn't on any of our maps. Old brick, dry as bone. Went on further than the city limits signed for. Had things in it. Officer Summers, Harris snapped. That's enough. No, it's not enough, Summers said, breathing hard. He needs to know. They sent a camera down there before they filled it. I saw the footage. He swallowed audibly. There were marks, he said. Scratches, gouges, like something had been moving along the walls for years. And at the end, just before the camera died, you could hear chewing. My engine note dropped a register, like something had taken hold of it, and was dragging. The whole cab sagged half an inch. Your scale's wrong, I said desperately. It has to be wrong. We recalibrated after the collapse, Harris said, voice flat. Twice. Brought in a mobile unit from out of state. It's not wrong. I checked my own gauges. Air pressure, temp, RPM, all within normal. But the suspension load monitor, a simple digital thing I barely glanced at most days, was climbing. 40,000, 55, 63. Numbers that didn't belong with an empty trailer. Numbers that belonged in overweight citations and horror stories. Why aren't you calling a wrecker? I snapped. Calling hazmat. Calling whoever the hell deals with this kind of crazy. Why are you just letting it sit under me? Harris didn't answer. Summers did. Because it likes trucks, he said. It only ever reaches up when there's a box over it. When those axles roll over a certain spot, something feels the weight, thinks it's food, tries to hold on. You're telling me something under this station is grabbing rigs? I said, laughing again, but there was no humor in it this time. Like some kind of asphalt octopus? Come on, man. Call it whatever you want, Summers said. We've had 4 drivers in 2 years roll across and show 20, 30 extra £1,000 on an empty box. All of them felt the drag. All of them said the same thing when we got them off the pad. What's that? I forced out. That it didn't want to let go. On cue, the truck lurched. Without touching the pedal, I felt the tractor shift forward an inch, then slam back as if hitched to a bungee cord. The wheel jerked in my hands. For a moment, the engine bogged, dropping to a low, angry growl. The radio squealed feedback. Driver, Harris barked. Put it in gear, now. When I say go, I want you to floor it. Don't stop until you're back on the interstate. Do not look in your mirrors. Do not touch your brakes no matter what you feel. Understand? This is insane, I whispered. Do you understand? He repeated. Yes, I said. I slid the shifter into first. My foot hovered over the accelerator. The cab sank another inch. Every instinct screamed at me to bail, to kill the engine, jump down and run for the scale house. But my legs felt like they'd been filled with wet sand. Summers' voice, closer now, maybe right under my door. It's wrapping around the axles, he said, horror plain. Jesus, it's climbing them. Summers, step away from the truck, Harris shouted, his voice distant through the glass. To me, he yelled, Go, now! I buried the pedal. The engine roared, protest turning to a strangled bellow, as torque slammed into whatever invisible mass held me. For a heartbeat, maybe 2, the truck didn't move. Then, with a sensation like tearing Velcro the size of a house, we lurched forward. The cab jumped. Something under the floor screamed. Not metal, not rubber. Something wet and furious, a sound that vibrated the fillings in my teeth. The smell of wet earth and old blood exploded into the cab, pouring in through vents and seams. My peripheral vision caught movement in the right mirror. Something huge and black, flowing out from under the trailer like smoke made of tar, reaching for the tandem axles. I didn't look. I kept my eyes locked on the far end of the lot, on the thin strip of ramp that promised the interstate and the civilized insanity of traffic. The truck bucked again. RPMs spiked. The load monitor flickered, 70,000, 60, 45. Each drop came with another ripping sensation, like invisible flesh being dragged off rusty hooks. "Don't you dare stop, driver," Harris yelled. "Keep going, keep going." I hit the ramp. The moment my steer tires crossed the painted line back toward I-10, the weight vanished. Not gradually, all at once. The truck surged forward like someone had cut a chain. My seatbelt dug into my collarbone as my body tried to keep up. The engine note jumped an octave as it no longer had to fight. I eased off the pedal, heart jackhammering. Behind me, something howled. The sound chased me up the ramp, a rage so profound it felt like the sky shook. It didn't come from any one direction. It came from the pavement itself, from the yellow lights, from the darkness under the manicured grass. Then I was back on the interstate, merging into the flow, just another set of headlights in the night. The way station receded in the mirror. I checked my gauges, all normal. Load monitor, 31,800. I laughed. I cried. I drove another 20 miles before my hands stopped shaking enough to safely grab the CB mic. Any of y'all just roll that way station back there?" I asked, voice thin. "Get any weird readings?" Silence. Then a chuckle. "Station's been closed for months, driver," a voice drawled. "Construction or some such. Signs say bypass. You sure you're not hitting the sauce?" I stared out at the darkness. "Closed?" I said. Lights were on. Officers inside, one named Harris. Ran me over the scale twice. Said I was heavy. "Buddy, I'm looking at it right now in my mirror," the other driver said. "Barricades up. Not a light on. Ain't a soul there." I swallowed. "Anyone hear about a collapse there?" I asked. "Trucker went into a hole. Never found his body." "You talking about Bayou Ridge Station?" Another voice chimed in, older, rough. "That was hell 3 years ago. I heard something like that, yeah. Local legend now. Boys say that place is cursed." "You been over their scale?" I asked. "Once," he said. "Empty box. They flagged me overweight. Brought in a portable unit, showed I was clean. Guy in the booth wouldn't look me in the eye. Next time I came through, station was shut down. Been that way since." Static filled the cab, like fog. I shut the CB off. Drove in silence. At the next truck stop, I pulled into a far corner, killed the engine, and walked back to the trailer with a flashlight in hand. The aluminum skin on the right side, just ahead of the tandems, was scored with 4 parallel gouges running straight up from the bottom rail. Each groove was as wide as my thumb, edges curled inward like something with obscene strength had raked its way up. The metal around them was damp, not with rain, with something thicker, darker. It smelled like turned earth and old blood and a meat locker all at once. I touched it, against every screaming instinct. Cold, so cold it burned. When I pulled my fingers back, they were clean. No stain, no proof, just a faint ache in the bones. Back in the cab, I checked my logs. The 15 minutes I'd spent at the station weren't there. Timestamps jumped from 0112, eastbound, to 0127, back on I-10. No stop, no detour, just a neat, impossible line. I called my company in the morning, told them the scale must be off, that something was wrong in Bayou Ridge. Safety officer laughed it off. "State shut that place down last year," he said. "Construction over some infrastructure issue. You get a citation, we'll fight it. Otherwise, don't worry about ghost scales." That's what they call them now, on the forums. Ghost scales. Stories about way stations that appear on routes where they shouldn't, flashing open when they've been closed for months. Stations that show up in your logs, even when your GPS swears you drove straight past. Officers with names that don't show up on any employment roster. And sometimes, if you scroll deep enough into the old threads, you'll find posts from other drivers who claim they rolled over Bayou Ridge and felt their empty rigs suddenly handle, like they were grossing 100,000 pounds. Most of those posts stop mid-sentence. Account deleted, user banned, thread locked. I avoid Louisiana now. Add an hour, sometimes 2, to my run just to swing wide, because I can still feel those 15 minutes in my bones, even if the logbook says they never happened. The way the cab sagged under me. The way the engine screamed on a flat lot. And worst of all, that impossible echoing sensation as I fought my way up the ramp, like something miles long was sliding off the underside of my trailer, sloughing away, retreating into the dark. Hungry, patient, waiting for the next empty box to roll over its throat. Story 4. The night I was forced to chase my own truck across West Texas. By the time I realized the truck ahead of me was mine, my Jake brake was screaming, and the odometer said I'd only gone 6 miles in the last 2 hours. The white Cascadia in front of me was absolutely identical. Same bent antenna, same hairline crack along the top of the windshield from that hailstorm outside Lubbock. Same company name on the door, Rio Grande Line Haul. Same dot number, same stupid little chrome Longhorn emblem. My niece made me bolt to the grill for luck. West Texas night swallowed us both. I was running west on I-20 between Sweetwater and Midland, January 11th, 2022, a little after 2 a.m. Sky low and dirty, wind shouldering the trailer in steady punches. My log said I should have been 80 miles further. My gut said I'd been out here all my life. The other Cascadia held steady at 65, about 300 feet ahead, my high beams kissing its mud flaps. I knew my own driving. I didn't drive like that. I grabbed the CB mic with sweaty fingers. Breaker 19, this is westbound Rio Grande 07. Anyone got eyes on a white Cascadia just ahead of me? Looks like my twin. You boys seeing this? Or am I finally losing it? Static hissed back. Channel 19, usually full of trash talk and weather bitching, was dead air. Then a voice slid through, thin and flat. "You're not losing it, Mark," it said. "That's you." Hearing your first name on 19, when you didn't give it, will shave 10 degrees off your body temperature. I hadn't dropped my name or my truck number. "Who's this?" I asked. "You running with me?" "You're running with yourself," the voice said. "Been doing it for a while now." Up ahead, my other truck's brake lights flashed once. No exit, no deer, just a warning blink, like a hand signal. The smell in the cab changed. I'd been living in the usual mix. Diesel, old coffee, expired pine tree. Now something else slid in, thick and chemical. Hot metal, burned rubber, sweet antifreeze. A faint iron tang that made my tongue feel too big. I thumbed the mic again. "You got a handle, mystery man?" I asked. "Or do I just call you creepy?" Silence stretched. "Call me Ryder," he said at last. "I'm a few miles behind you." "Sort of." "Sort of," I repeated. "That's supposed to mean something?" "It will," he said. "How long you been chasing yourself now?" I almost said 5 minutes. Then I looked at the dash clock. 2:06 a.m. I could have sworn it had said 2:06 the last time I'd checked too, and the time before that. I stared at the odometer trip. 6.3 miles since I'd left the Loves outside Sweetwater. I'd been driving at least an hour. "Roads messing with my head," I muttered. "Long day. Too much caffeine." Up ahead, my twin rig's right blinker came on. There was no exit, just desert fence and scrub. The truck drifted toward the shoulder, rode the rumble strip, gravel spitting, then eased back into the lane, blinker still ticking. "Ryder," I said, keeping my voice level. "You sure that's me? Could be some joker in a cloned truck." "Look at the left mud flap," he said softly. "Down low." I did. There, catching my brights as the flap bounced, was a torn corner of black tape on the bracket. I'd put that there 3 days earlier in El Paso, when the bracket was rattling, and I didn't have time to do it right. Nobody else would have that exact ripped triangle of tape in that exact place. "Okay," I said. "Suppose I believe you. Why am I driving my own rig in front of myself? And why haven't I passed me yet?" "Because you're not supposed to," Ryder said. "Not if you like breathing." The AC fan clicked down a speed on its own. The cab instantly felt smaller, the air thicker. I rolled the window down a crack. The wind knifed in, cold and dusty, but it didn't kill the smell of wreck. "Where exactly are you?" I asked. "You said you're behind me." "On a bad night, this stretch turns into a rail yard," he said. "Tracks on top of tracks, time, space, all laid over each other. You're on one, I'm on another, I can see yours. You can't see mine." "Yeah, that clears everything up," I muttered. Up ahead, my other Cascadia's brake lights came on solid. This time it really slowed. 50, 45. I felt the ripple in the air as that box displaced wind. My own rig rolled faster, closing the gap whether I wanted to or not. "Don't get closer than 100 feet, Ryder said sharply. "You hear me, Mark? Do not get up on that bumper." My foot eased off the throttle. "You want to tell me why?" I asked. "You rear-end yourself," he said. "You won't walk away from it. Not in any version." The other truck's four-ways came on. I was near enough now to see into the cab, just barely. A shape behind the wheel. Shoulders. Head. No details. "Why do you think you're looping the same 6 miles?" Ryder asked. "Why do you think your clock's stuck? Road wants something. It's trying to line you up just right to get it." "So what do I do?" I asked. "Pass," he said, "but not yet. Not until I tell you. And when you go by, you don't look into the other cab. Not for more than a second." Burned coolant and hot brake stink pressed in through the vents, thick enough to make my eyes water. I looked ahead. Beyond my twin, a faint orange glow sat on the horizon. At first I thought it was Midland. Then the light pulsed, brighter, then dimmer. Not city, fire. Heat wavered above the asphalt. My GPS chimed. "Recalculating," the flat female voice said. "Head west on I-20 for 70 miles then. Error, error." The map froze. The little truck icon spun in place. "Ryder," I said, "where does this end?" "About mile marker 332, he said. "Concrete bridge, curve, black ice if the temp drops 3 more degrees. You ever been in a rollover?" "Seen a few," I said tightly. "Never been the star of the show." "I have," he said. "February 3rd, 2015. Same stretch. Tanker in front of me lost it on the ice, went sideways, blocked both lanes. I came around the bend at 65 with a full load of pipe. That was it." A pressure settled over my chest. "Sorry to hear that, brother," I said. "Don't be," he said. "Just don't join me." Up ahead, my double's left blinker came on. He was signaling for a lane that didn't exist. Just 2 lanes and a thin shoulder. "You're about to get your chance," Ryder said. "You'll see a 3rd lane open up on the left. It isn't really there. It's bait." "Bait for what?" I asked. "For you," he said. "For the version of you that feeds the loop. You take that lane and try to shoot past yourself. You're gonna hit the same patch of physics I did. Only now the road gets to kill 2 of you for the price of 1. I checked my mirrors. Nothing behind me, but darkness, and a faint red glow way back that might have been a town. or just eye strain. I flicked my high beams off, then on. My twin's taillights flashed back, as if in acknowledgement. "Who's driving that?" I asked quietly. "If that's me, who's actually in the cab?" "You are," Ryder said. "Just not this you. Some nights he dies. Some nights you do. Some nights both. The road's just trying on outcomes like shirts." The other Cascadia drifted left. Sure enough, a passing lane appeared, cutting out of the dark like it had always been there. Fresh paint, reflective markers, every bit of highway sense I had screamed relief. I could swing out, hammer down, get around this clown and leave him in the wash. "Not yet," Ryder said. "He's not where he wants to be." "Where does he want to be?" I asked. "Right beside you," he said. "Driver's window to driver's window. That's when he looks." The smell in the cab thickened until I could taste it. The orange glow ahead grew. I could see smoke now, a low smear across the sky. The other truck eased back to 50. My own speed bled down to match, like someone had put a hand on the hood. I pressed the accelerator. The pedal hit the floor with a soft, useless thunk. The engine stayed at 1500 RPM. No more, no less. "Ryder," I said through clenched teeth. "I've lost throttle." "It's deciding," he said. "You already did the crime. Blew past every watch for ice sign you've ever seen. Told yourself you'd nap later. Road remembers." "Yeah, well, I remember the fuel tax," I snapped. He gave a dry little laugh. "Listen, Mark," he said. "When I say now, you jerk that wheel left with everything you got. You're not changing lanes. You're jumping tracks. There's a sliver of space between his version and yours. If you hit it, you'll feel like someone kicked your soul. You might puke. You might black out. But you'll miss the loop." "And if I miss the sliver?" I asked. "You hit me," he said. "The me who never made it. And then you burn with yourself until there's nothing left to recognize." The passing lane shone invitingly on my left. My twin drifted right, giving me room. His cab was close enough now that I could see more of the shape inside. Head turned fractionally, profile almost visible. "Don't look," I told myself. I looked anyway. For a heartbeat, our windows aligned. The face behind the other windshield was mine. Same beard, same nose, same tired lines carved by a decade of long haul. But the eyes were wrong. Too wide, pupils blown, whites spiderwebbed. Blood matted the hair at his temple. He grinned at me. It was like watching your own reflection decide to do something you hadn't thought of yet. His lips moved. No sound, but I could read them clear. "Catch me." The cab rocked like something huge had leaned on it. My steering wheel jerked, trying to pull left on its own. The road wanted me in that pretty passing lane. "Now!" Ryder roared. I yanked the wheel left. Not a controlled lane change. A hard, panicked pull, like swerving for a deer the size of God. There was a sliver of non-time where everything went flat gray and silent. The wheel turned into something alive under my hands, fighting to spin all the way around. My stomach dropped. The world stretched like taffy. Then something hit me. Not from outside, from everywhere. It felt like being dragged through a rubber membrane soaked in ice water and gasoline. Every nerve lit on fire. My vision went white, then black, then filled with after images of my own truck, on fire, rolling, smashing, always smashing. Somewhere inside all that noise, I heard other engines. Hundreds of them, all redlining at once. I must have blacked out. When I came back, my hands were locked on the wheel, arms aching. My truck was still upright. The engine howled, finally responding to the buried accelerator. Wind screamed around the cab. I was in the left lane of a normal two-lane westbound I-20. No extra passing lane, no other Cascadia. Just me, the empty road, and a smear of smoke in the sky behind me. The dash clock read 3:41 a.m. The odometer trip said 89 miles. I'd gone from 6.3 to 89, with no memory of the in-between. "Ryder?" I croaked into the mic. "You still there?" Static. Then, faintly, like a signal from deep space. "You jumped," he said. "Didn't think you had it in you. Where the hell are you?" I asked. "Right where I've always been," he said. Mile marker 332. Under 40,000 gallons of burning diesel and somebody else's scrap steel. A pause. "But I don't see you here anymore," he added. "That's new." Wind buffeted the cab. I checked the mirrors. For the first time all night, I saw other trucks. Headlights coming up behind, taillights ahead again. "What happens if somebody else gets caught in it?" I asked. "Some rookie who doesn't hear you." "That's why I talk," he said. "Why I sit out here in the static and wait for voices that answer back." His signal crackled. "You ever run this stretch again?" he added. "And you see your own trailer lights just a little too perfect ahead of you. Don't be a hero. Get off at the next ramp. Sleep in the day cab. Let dispatch yell." "And if I hear you again?" I asked. "Means it didn't stick," he said. "Means the loop found a way to tie you back in. Let's hope that doesn't happen." The CB went quiet. At the next rest area, I pulled off, set the brakes, and sat there listening to the ticking of cooling metal. I opened my door and stepped down. The night smelled normal. Dust, sage, a little bit of someone's cigarette on the wind. I walked back along the trailer with my flashlight, checking tires, hubs, the usual. Everything looked as it should, except the left mud flap. The black tape I'd wrapped around the bracket was gone. In its place, the rubber was melted in 4 long streaks, as if it had brushed against something white-hot, in a world my eyes couldn't see. Back in the cab, I pulled up the news on my phone once a signal came back. The first story that popped for I-20 accident Texas was 8 years old. February 3rd, 2015. Tanker rollover near mile marker 332. Multiple fatalities. The photos showed flames turning the sky orange. Twisted pipe lay scattered across the median. One of the mangled shapes in the background looked like a white Cascadia. The caption mentioned the driver's handle on the CB. They called him Ghost Rider. I still run West Texas. You can't avoid it forever in this job. But when I feel the night getting thick and the miles starting to smear and my odometer doesn't match my bones, I turn my CB up and talk. I don't care if I sound crazy. I grab that mic like a lifeline and say, "Breaker 19, this is westbound Rio Grande 07. Y'all seeing the same road I am?" And if, under the static, I hear my own voice answer, back from somewhere just out of phase, I know I've got a choice. Chase myself into the fire, or yank the wheel and pray there's still a track left that belongs to the version of me who lives long enough to tell you this one story, out here tonight. Story 36. The night I delivered a load to a town that doesn't exist anymore. By the time I realized the exit didn't appear on any map, I was already halfway down the ramp with 40,000 pounds of medical freight dragging me into darkness. I was westbound on I-70 across Kansas, October 3rd, 2020, just after midnight. Pandemic peak. My trailer was packed with masks, gowns, IV bags, critical PPE, dispatch called it. Company liked to say we were heroes, paid us like we were delivery apps. The Qualcomm chimed at 11:47 p.m., right as I rolled past mile marker 190. New route message popped up. Change of consignee. Divert to Hollis, KS. Critical night delivery. Follow GPS pin only. Do not share location. Hollis, Kansas. I knew Hayes, Selena, Russell, every truck stop and nasty diner on that stretch, but I'd never heard of Hollis. I grabbed the mic. "Dispatch, this is truck 229 westbound on 70, I said. "You sure about this, Hollis? Not on my atlas." Carl, my night dispatcher, came back too fast. "Yeah, 229. Hollis is a small municipality," he said. "Off-grid clinic. Overloaded hospitals are routing spillover there. Customer wants it low profile. That's why it's not on commercial mapping. Follow the pin. Good bonus on this one. ETA 0300. "Copy," I said, though something in his tone itched. "You ever been there yourself?" "Just drive the truck, Mark," he said, and clicked off. The GPS updated on its own. A thin gray road branched off the interstate ahead to a red pin in the middle of black nothing. The name under the pin just read, "Receiving." 5 minutes later, the exit appeared in my headlights. I swear it hadn't been there half an hour before. Standard green sign, reflective and clean. Exit 193, Hollis. No gas food lodging icons. No distance to next services. Just that one word and a right arrow like a command. I checked the atlas on the passenger seat. Mile 193 showed nothing but fields. My blinker was already on. "Breaker 19. Anybody westbound between 190 and 200. See an exit for Hollis," I asked on the CB. Dead hiss. Channel 19, usually full of bullshit and weather complaints, was silent as a grave. The ramp dropped away steeper than it looked. As I left the interstate, sound changed. The white roar of 70 faded behind me, like someone turning down a fan. Wind became a thin hiss through corn. The night felt bigger, the stars lower and too bright. The GPS told me, "Continue straight for 6.6 miles. The 2-lane at the bottom was cracked and narrow. No shoulder, just broken asphalt between black fields." My headlights caught gray stalks, then scrub, then low shapes crouched close to the ditch that weren't any crop I recognized. At 4.1 miles, I saw the town sign. "Welcome to Hollis, Pop." 1872, it read in sun-faded letters. Someone had spray-painted over the last digit in dull black, turning the 2 into an ugly smear. "No wonder you're off-grid," I muttered. But there were no lights ahead, no gas, station glow, no farmhouse porch lamps, just that sign and darker shapes rising up as the road dipped. Structures emerged in my high beams like they'd been waiting. A farmhouse with peeling white paint, windows dark and blank, porch swing twisting on rusted chains, a squat cinder-block house with its front door hanging open, a child's tricycle on its side in the weeds, a gas station with ancient mechanical pumps, glass shattered, price numbers blown out, a diner called Lulu's, red letters flaking, curtains still hanging stiff in greasy windows. Every building looked abandoned, not destroyed, not vandalized, just left. As if one day everyone in Hollis stood up mid-meal and walked out, never bothering to turn off the lights, and time eventually did it for them. "Hollis, Kansas," I said under my breath. "Population none." The GPS pinged. "Turn right onto Main Street." Main was a slightly wider strip of cracked asphalt with more dead buildings on either side. A bar, a barber shop. What might have been a school, windows boarded from the inside. At the end of the block, my headlights caught a brick rectangle with a faded red cross on a sign out front. Hollis Community Medical. Of course. The parking lot beside it was empty. Grass pushed through broken lines in the asphalt. My brights washed across a single roll-up bay door with "Receiving" stenciled over it, letters almost gone. The GPS cheerfully flashed. Arrived. I pulled into the lot, eased the trailer toward the bay, and set the brakes. When I shut off my headlights, the darkness hit the cab like solid cloth. The only light outside was a weak yellow glow above the loading door I hadn't noticed from the road. The Qualcomm chimed again. "New message from dispatch. Dock at Hollis Medical Receiving. Do not enter facility. No signature required. Drop pallets inside door and leave. Call when empty. Too specific. Too insistent. Yeah, no red flags there, I muttered. Dispatch, 229, I said into the truck system. Assuming you hear me. This place looks abandoned. No vehicles. No staff. Are you sure? No response. Message status showed sent. Not delivered. No bars on my phone either. No E. No 3G. Nothing. Like the air here had eaten the signal. Fine. Drop and run. I put on my vest, grabbed my gloves, and climbed out into the cold. The air smelled wrong for Kansas in October. Not just dirt and old corn, but something chemical under it. Stale disinfectant and the faint ghost of hospital food. The wind didn't sound quite right either. Instead of long rushes, it came in slow pulses, like breathing. The loading dock was about waist high, concrete chipped at the edges. The steel door had a dent at head level, as if someone had slammed into it hard. The yellow security light above buzzed like an insect trapped in its own shell. I knocked with my fist. Delivery for Hollis Medical, I called. PPE load from Denver. My voice echoed off brick and died. No answer. I tried the handle. It turned easily under my glove and the door pulled inward with a sticky, suctioning sigh, like it hadn't been opened in years. Cold, dry air flowed out. It smelled like bleach that had given up. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered to life down a short corridor, triggered by some motion sensor that shouldn't have had power. Tile floor, scuffed and yellowed. Bulletin board on the wall with curling notices. Mask up Hollis. Visitor restrictions in effect. The dates were all April and May 2020. Something in me wanted to slam the door and walk away. But the company had stacked bonus money on this trip, and I kept picturing real nurses in real ERs somewhere down the road, counting on this load because someone at corporate got creative with overflow plans. Get it done, I told myself. No exploring, no curiosity. You drop the pallets and you bounce. I lowered the trailer's liftgate, wrestled the pallet jack under the first row of shrink-wrapped boxes, and hauled it toward the dock. The sound of the jack's metal wheels on steel and tile rang too clear in the hollow building. Just inside the door, I set the first pallet down. The instructions said not to go inside. I could respect that much. On my way back for the second, I noticed the clipboard. It hung from a nail just beside the loading door. Paper stack browned at the edges. Delivery manifest, medical supply, driver. My name filled in the blank in thick familiar letters. Mark Holland, 229. I stared at it. I had not written that. The date line read 10/03/2020 tonight. The ink looked faded, like it had sat in sun and dust for years. Below it was another sheet. Delivery manifest, medical supply, driver Mark Holland, 229, date 10/3/2019, then 2018, same name, same truck number, each page older, edges more brittle, letters bled into the paper grain. Some years were missing, some repeated. My head went light. You all right out there, driver? A woman's voice asked. Close enough, I jumped. I hadn't heard footsteps. I turned. Down the hall, at a T-junction, maybe 20 feet away, someone stood just beyond the reach of the flickering light. Blue scrubs, pale shoes, a disposable mask dangling around her neck. Her hair was tucked into a surgical cap, the edges gray. Sorry, I said, heart pounding. Didn't see you. Dispatch said no contact, just drop and go. She walked toward me, slow and steady. As she came under the light, I saw her face, tired in a way that went past normal night shift. Deep grooves around the mouth, eyes like someone who'd watched something awful for too long. Her badge read, R. Clark, RN. You always say that, she said, that you're just dropping and going. A chill crawled under my vest. We met? I asked. More times than you remember. She glanced at the pallet. Supplies look the same, though. We appreciate the consistency. Look, I said, forcing a laugh I didn't feel. I'm just a driver. My system says critical night delivery, so here I am. But this town, it looks like everybody left 20 years ago. How are you working a hospital with no people? Her eyes flicked past me toward the parking lot. You'd be surprised who still needs beds, she said. Do you mind pulling those pallets just inside? Wind gets in when the doors open that long. Sure, I muttered, because arguing with a nurse in a dead hospital in a town that didn't exist on any current map didn't seem like it would improve my night. On the second trip in, the air felt heavier. The corridor seemed darker beyond the little halo of light around the dock. I heard a faint beeping far away, monitors maybe, or maybe just my brain pasting familiar sounds onto a place that had no right to them. You said we've met, I said, dragging the jack. I'd remember a place like this. You remember pieces, Clark said. Highway, ice, headlights, the sound when 40 tons goes sideways. Her tone was gentle, like she was talking a panicked patient down. Most minds don't like to hold on to the rest. Lady, I haven't crashed a truck in my life, I said. Not this life, she said. I left the second pallet, my skin buzzing. Okay, that's 3, I said. You want to sign something so I can get the hell out of here? Of course, she said. Front desk. She turned and started down the hall. I didn't want to go deeper in. Every step away from the door felt like a bad bet, but she walked with the easy authority of someone who knows you'll follow. The reception area looked like 100 small-town hospitals I've seen from better days. Plastic chairs, old magazines, a fish tank with no fish, just green water. Behind glass, a curved desk with a computer so old it might have run on Windows XP. A thick ledger book sat open in front of it. Clark slid the glass aside and tapped the page. Right there, she said. The heading at the top read, Intake Log, Critical Supply, Driver Sign-In. The columns were labeled name, unit, date, and status. Names filled the page. Some I recognized from chatter on Channel 19. Handles linked to legal identities I'd never bothered to learn. Some I'd never heard. Halfway down, my own name appeared. Mark Holland, 229, 10/03/2013, deceased on arrival. My heart lurched. Below it, the same name appeared again on different dates. 2015, left against medical advice. 2017, unable to locate body. 2019, released to family. The last line on the page was blank except for Mark Holland, 229, 10/03/2020. I stepped back without realizing I'd moved. I didn't die, I said. I've been driving since. A framed newspaper on the wall caught my eye. I-70 pileup claims local. Driver, the headline read. The photograph was muddy black and white, but I recognized the curve of the freeway, recognized the company logo on a crumpled tractor lying on its side across the median, recognized the bent antenna. The date under the masthead said October 4th, 2013. My wife would have told me, I said, but the words sounded weak even to my own ears. Clark watched me with that tired sympathy nurses get when the worst part of the news is already past. There are stretches of road that don't know what year it is, she said quietly, where accidents fold over each other until nobody's sure which version stuck. Hollis kept getting the ambulances when bigger hospitals were full. For a while, we were the only place taking overflow. Then the state cut funding, and the town dried up. Officially, we closed. And unofficially, I asked. She motioned toward the ledger. Officially, no one ever dies here anymore, she said. Unofficially, we're still processing paperwork. My head felt like it was full of cotton. You're telling me I'm dead in one version, not in another? and I just delivered a load from somewhere between them, I said. I'm telling you, you keep driving into the same storm on the same date, year after year, from different directions, in different conditions, she said. Sometimes you make it past the black ice. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes dispatch reroutes you here, and every time you refuse to sign. She nudged the pen toward me. If you sign out properly, she said, there's a chance you stop looping through this place. Maybe the highway lets one copy of you stay put. What happens if I don't? I asked. You go back to 70, she said. You forget enough to convince yourself it was a weird dream at a rest area. You hear about a pileup near mile marker 193 on the news tomorrow and feel sick without knowing why. And next October 3rd, we have this conversation again. The overhead light buzzed. For a split second, everything in the lobby doubled. 2 desks, 2 nurses, 2 of me standing there with my hand hovering over the ledger. One of the other me's had blood running down the side of his face. Then the world snapped back. My knees went weak. Outside, wind pressed against the glass, like something with lungs. Why does dispatch keep sending me? I whispered. Clark's smile turned bitter. You think they know? She said. You think the kid on the night desk in Omaha has the clearance to see which exits exist on which nights? No. The road uses their systems like veins. It pushes notifications through where it can. All they see is a rate and a bonus. All you see is a pin and a paycheck. The pen was still in my hand. I hadn't felt myself pick it up. The page waited. My name and unit number were already there. Only the last box, status, was empty. Do I get to choose what I write? I asked. For once, yes, she said. The air felt thick as syrup. My hand moved. The ballpoint scratched. Alive, I wrote. The word looked small and stupid on the line. Clark let out a long breath. Somewhere down the hall, a door closed by itself with a soft, final click. Let's hope the road agrees, she said. She tore off a hospital wristband from a little roll and handed it to me. White plastic, cheap clasp. My name and birthday printed on it, and under that, date of discharge, 10/03/2020. Souvenir, she said, or proof, depending how your memory treats this. I didn't remember walking back to the dock. One moment I was at the desk. The next, I was blinking in the colder air by the pallets, hand on the steel door. The security light above hummed, steady now. The hallway behind me looked a shade darker, as if the building were relaxing. Get back on the highway, Mark. Clark's voice floated from somewhere I couldn't place. And if you ever see Hollis on a sign again, keep going. The door shut with a heavy shunk that reverberated in my chest. Outside, the lot looked smaller. The town looked less. Half the buildings I'd driven past on my way in were just shapes now, outlines of foundations, rooftops sunk into the ground. Lulu's sign hung at a sharper angle. The gas station pumps were gone entirely, leaving only stained rectangles in the concrete. I climbed into the cab. The wristband was still in my fist. When I buckled in and looked toward the interstate, my headlights caught the green guide sign again. Exit 193, Hollis. For a second, the letters flickered. Then they glitched, like pixels failing, and resolved into Exit 193, CORD7, no services. My GPS map updated with a little stutter. The gray spur road I'd taken to the town vanished. My truck icon sat on a short dead-end stub. Recalculating, the GPS chirped. Return to highlighted route. Working on it, I muttered. Back on I-70, traffic noise rolled over me like waking up. A FedEx set of doubles whooshed by, driver oblivious to whatever I'd just crawled out of. The CB came alive mid-argument about sports. Breaker 19, this is 229 westbound, Anybody heard of a town called Hollis out here? I asked, more to test something than anything else. Hollis, a driver answered after a beat. Buddy, you're thinking of Holcomb, and that's way west of you. Ain't no Hollis on 70. Not since the 80s anyway. Little place dried up when the rail spur closed. You on meds? Maybe I should be, I said. At the Loves near Hayes, I pulled off, hands still vibrating. I went inside, bought the worst coffee in the building, and used their Wi-Fi to dig. Old Kansas DOT scans, historic maps, whatever I could find. Hollis, unincorporated, showed up on a 1986 highway planning document as a dot near mile 193. Margin note, population decreasing, future services uncertain, on every map. After 1990, it was gone. Back at the truck, I opened my palm. The wristband lay there, plastic warm from my skin, letters sharp and new. Date of discharge, 10/3/2020. Sometimes now, when October rolls around, my Qualcomm will still ping at 11:47 p.m. with a route change, then clear itself before I can read it. Sometimes my GPS will briefly show a gray spur at mile 193 before snapping back. Once, in the rain, I caught the shape of an old green sign in my headlights, where the ramp is, with ghost letters that looked like Hollis before they washed away. I don't take that exit anymore. I don't accept diversions with unnamed pins. And on quiet nights, when the wind on the prairie starts to sound like breathing, I'll find that wristband somewhere I didn't leave it. Looped over the CB mic, curled on the dash, once even snapped gently around my wrist while I slept. Every time, the date of discharge is the same. The date of admission field, underneath it though, the one I swear wasn't there in Hollis, keeps changing. It's always October 3rd. The year keeps getting farther from 2013, which means somewhere, on some version of I-70, some rookie hauling PPE in a white Cascadia is still seeing Hollis pop up on his Qualcomm, and I'm just one driver who finally signed alive in a ledger in a town that doesn't exist anymore, hoping that was enough to keep at least this version of me from answering the call again. Story 5. The truck stop that only shows up for drivers who never make it home. By the time I saw my own truck parked outside the diner with the headlights still burning, my logbook said I'd been off duty for 3 hours in a different town. I was supposed to be asleep in Amarillo, not sitting in a greasy booth somewhere between nowhere and nothing, staring at Unit 418 idling alone under a blank white sign, same bent CB antenna, same missing driver's side hubcap, same sun-faded RIO Cactus Freight logo on the door. My truck, in a lot I didn't remember turning into. The pylon out by the pumps glowed solid white. No Loves, no Petro, no brand at all. Just food. Fuel. Showers in flickering red on the little marquee below. The waitress topped off my coffee. "You look like you've seen a ghost, hun," she said. Her name tag said Joe. "I checked into a motel," I said. "Room 212 at the Red Roof in Amarillo. I remember the desk clerk. I remember the hallway. I remember the busted ice machine. I do not remember getting back in my truck and driving here." Joe glanced at the pylon. "Funny thing about nights like this," she said. "You think you're parking where you meant to until you look up." The TV over the counter played muted news. The closed caption sat frozen on the same sentence about a winter storm. 3 other drivers sat at the counter, shoulders hunched. A big guy in a Texas Pride hoodie, a thin man in an Iowa corn cap, an older fellow in a Schneider hat. The bell over the door chimed. A man walked in, heavy boots leaving dark wet prints. He wore the Texas Pride hoodie I'd just clocked at the counter, only now it was soaked like he'd crawled out of a river. His beard glittered with ice. His skin had that waxy gray cast you only see under bad hospital lights. He took the empty stool. Joe set a mug in front of him without asking. Rough slide, Chubb? She asked. He blinked too slowly. Hit standing water on an overpass, by mile 212, he said. Felt the trailer go. Thought I caught it. Then the railing jumped under my mirror. He stared at his hands. Heard myself on 19 too. Didn't like the way I sounded. The man in the Schneider hat nodded once. Yeah, he said quietly. We heard you. I swallowed. Where is this place? I asked. Exactly. Because my GPS said I was west of Amarillo. My paper log says I went off duty at 20:45, and I don't remember an exit with a blank sign and a truck stop I've never seen. Every conversation died. Joe sighed. We're a little off the main, she said. Between lanes. Between what and what? I snapped. Between where you were headed and where you ended up, she said. It's a skinny stretch. Most folks blow right past it. The ones who don't usually have a reason. I looked at 418 again. The headlights burned into the snow. No silhouette in the driver's seat. I left my truck at a motel, I said firmly. Sure, the man in the Iowa corn cap said. You remember the clerk? The buckle of the key card? The smell of cheap carpet? You remember pulling your bag out of the sleeper? He raised his mug. Do you remember feeling the mattress under your back? The question landed heavy. I remembered opening the door to room 212. I did not remember lying down. How long you figure you've been sitting there? Iowa asked. 10 minutes, I said. He jerked his chin at the wall clock over the grill. The red second hand ticked around steadily. 2:13. My phone on the table said the same. The problem was I could remember checking it before and seeing 2:13 then too. And before that. You can feel when time doesn't move, even if the hands pretend. Breaker 19, this is 418, I said suddenly, grabbing the CB mic clipped by the window. Anyone hear this? Anybody got eyes on a white Cascadia in the lot at a place with a blank pylon sign, somewhere off 40, east of Amarillo? The speaker hissed. Nothing came back. Channel 19 never stays silent this long, not in bad weather. Usually somebody's out there bitching about chain laws or telling lies about their mileage. The radio doesn't carry far from here, Joe said. You can hear what you already heard sometimes. Not much else. The Schneider hat guy twisted on his stool to face me. Name's Hank, he said. You can call me that if you want. You probably have. You looked into the ER bathroom yet? No, I said, and I'm not sure I like where that question is going. You'll like it less later, he said. Go look. I didn't want to. I went anyway. The hallway to the restrooms felt longer than it should have. Wood paneling on one side, a faded poster of a long-haul rig on the other, with the caption, Drive safe, get home. The get home part was peeling. The men's sign on the door had lost its N. I pushed it open. Stale, not quite bleach air hit my face. 3 stalls, 2 urinals, a row of sinks. Mirrors cracked at the corners. Names were scratched into every reflective surface. Not tags, not jokes. Lists, handles, unit numbers, dates. Chubb 306-019-2023. Gator 550202-2008. Little Bear 119-12-14-2015. Some were neatly crossed out with a single slash. Some had 3 or 4 slashes through them, like someone kept coming back to update their status. Near the bottom edge of the far mirror, almost hidden by old water spots, I found mine. Mark 418-01-11-2016. Line through. Mark 418-01-11-2019. Line. Mark 418-01-11-2021. Line. Under them, fresh enough that flakes of chrome still clung to the letters. Mark 418-011-11-2024. No line. For a moment, I just listened to the building. The hum of the lights, the distant clink of dishes, the soft scrape of chair legs. Beneath it all was another sound, low and constant, like tires on wet pavement played through a busted speaker. It made the hair on my arms stand up. It felt like the noise of 100 crashes still happening somewhere just out of view. My reflection hovered over the words, "Face too pale." For a heartbeat, the mirror doubled my image. The other me had blood matting his hairline and a shard of glass in his cheek. He looked like he'd gone through a windshield and hadn't quite finished the trip. Then the lights flickered, and it was just my own shaken face again. I walked back out to the diner. The men at the counter watched me like I'd come back from a test. They'd already failed. "So?" Iowa asked. "So, apparently I have a history here," I said, "and apparently I'm stubborn about learning." Joe set a little white circle of plastic on my table. A hospital wristband. "Most of you think this is the worst part," she said. "Like signing yourself into something. It isn't. It's just telling the road you're done for tonight." The band had blank lines for name and status. My hands didn't want to touch it. "Is this the part where you tell me I'm dead?" I asked. "No," she said. "This is the part where we tell you you keep almost dying in the same storm, and the highway finally spat one version of you out sideways, into here, to decide if you're going to keep playing chicken with black ice." "What's the counter for?" I asked, nodding at Chubb and the others. "Counters for the ones the wrecker already hooked," Hank said. "Booths for the ones that slid just far enough to see the sign." I looked out at 418 again. The snow around it looked deeper than when I'd first sat down, up to the rims now. Frost crawled up the windshield from the corners like fingers. "How do I get back to the version where I make it to Amarillo?" I asked. "You don't," Iowa said. "That one already happened. That Mark is down the road arguing with a vending machine about Doritos. You're the one who didn't quite stick the landing." "So I'm—" "What?" I said. "A copy?" "Loop," Joe said. "Think of it like a bad record skipping over the same bar. Sometimes you play through, sometimes you catch. Sometimes the needle jumps to the next groove. This place sits in the scratch." The wristband weighted under my fingers. "Suppose I put this on," I said. "Then what?" "Then you don't drive tonight," she said. "Not from here. You sit. You eat something, even if it tastes like cardboard. You call the people who care if you're late, and you let the other versions of you crash, or not crash, without dragging this one along for the ride." "And if I don't?" I asked. Her eyes slid to the window. "You go climb back in 418, she said. "Start her up. Follow a ramp you recognize right back into the same 15 seconds you've been dying in over and over. Sooner or later, that'll be the one that sticks. We'll get another picture of you for the board, and we'll scratch a line through your name on the mirror." The TV flickered again. For a moment, it showed live-looking footage of an accident on an icy overpass. Multiple semis skewed across lanes, four-wheelers crushed between them, flares fizzling in the snow. One white Cascadia lay on its side against the rail, trailer twisted, RIO Cactus Freight, barely legible on the bent door. A black dot in the lower corner read Jan 11, 2021. My stomach rolled. I reached for the band before I could think myself out of it. The plastic was cold and weirdly heavy. I slid it over my hand. It snugged against my wrist without a clasp. My name and unit number were printed there already in neat black type. Mark 418. Under status, ink bled into place as I watched. On hold. The room exhaled. Joe gave a short nod. "Good," she said. "How long do I have to stay?" I asked. "As long as it takes," Hank said. "Could be 10 minutes. Could be till sunup. Time's funny at the edges." "Once you see this place," Chubb added quietly, "you'll see the signs more, out there. Little blurs where the exit numbers don't look right. It's the road asking if you're really done playing games. Say yes more often than no, and you might not end up here again. I pulled out my phone. 1 bar of service now, where there'd been none. A text from dispatch blinked on screen. Heard about pileup near 244. Checking your okay. Call when safe. News icon showed a headline. Multi-vehicle crash shuts down I-40. My thumb hovered over the link. I didn't tap it. I called my wife instead. She answered on the first ring, voice thick. Mark? I'm okay, I said. Shut down for the night. Roads are bad. I'll be a day late. Silence. Then a shuddering breath. You finally listened, she said quietly. Good. We talked until my coffee went cold. When I hung up and looked outside again, the lot had shifted. The blank white pylon looked older, its base cracked, the light inside it pulsing tiredly. The snow on my truck had smoothed over, no fresh fall. Just that still, heavy look things get when nobody's touched them in a while. For a few seconds, 418 wasn't there at all. Just a clean square of darker asphalt where tires had once sat. Then it was back, like a bad frame edit, but the engine was dark. No exhaust, no heat shimmer. The part that took the hit is somewhere else, Joe said, following my gaze. You don't have to ride with it tonight. The clock over the grill finally moved. 2:14, 2:15, 2:19. Time unstuck itself, lazy and reluctant. I ate a plate of rubbery eggs. Iowa dozed with his head in his hands. Hank watched the door. Eventually, Joe tapped the band on my wrist. Meter's still running, she said. Storm's shifting. Roads will still be ugly, but they'll be real roads again when you get back on them. That's the best you get. How do I leave? I asked. Walk out, climb in, point your wheels at a town you can find on a map, she said. If the sign over the highway has a real name and a real number, you're clear. If it's blank, come back inside. I paid out of habit. She took the bills like money meant anything there. Outside, the cold hit like a slap. The pylon hummed overhead, but now the marquee below clearly read, Big Rig Plaza, exit 244. Brand logo I recognized. Price of diesel, digital, and depressing. A few trucks idled in the blue pre-dawn dark. On the highway beyond, steady streaks of headlights cut the night. My GPS map showed me exactly where I was. Off I-40, just east of Amarillo. No blank spaces, no missing labels. I walked around 418 once, checking for damage. She was clean. No fresh scrapes, no bent rails. When I climbed up and turned the key, the engine caught on the first crank, as if nothing strange had happened at all. Discharged, left against advice, still breathing. That's what the wristband said now. I set my brakes again. I slept until noon. Dispatch chewed my ear off for being late. The receiver grumbled about rescheduling. My wife sounded more relieved than annoyed when I finally rolled into the driveway 2 days after that. Sometimes, even now, when I roll past a dark exit in bad weather, my speaker will pop and spit half a syllable in my own voice, begging for a break I already took. That's how I know the loop's still out, there, hungry. The road doesn't forget the ones who almost fed it. Sometimes, running at night, I'll see an exit sign up ahead where there shouldn't be one. The numbers blurred, the logo on the pylon washed out to pure white. The GPS lags for a mile or two. Channel 19 goes quiet. I keep my hands on the wheel. I keep my speed down. If I really listen, under the drone of the tires, I can almost hear a waitress's voice and the clink of a chipped mug. I don't pull off. I don't need to. I already know what's waiting there. My own unit number idling under a blank sign, a corkboard full of Polaroids, where I've almost earned one more nail, and a choice between being the driver who never makes it home, or the one who finally believed a truck stop when it told him to stay put that night. Story number 7. The night my double climbed into my truck and tried to live my life for me. By the time I saw myself climb into my truck, my keys were in my hand, and the pump was still ticking up dollars I hadn't spent. It was 2:11 a.m. on a Tuesday in February, northbound on I-35 just outside Wichita. Freezing rain, the kind that looks like nothing until you try to walk on it. I'd swung into the Red Rooster Plaza like I'd done dozens of times. Pump 6, fill the tanks, grab bad coffee, push on to Kansas City. I swiped the card, punched in the truck number, jammed the nozzle into the saddle tank, and listened to the heavy thump of diesel rushing in. My breath smoked the air. The wind cut right through my jacket, smelling like metal and wet asphalt. I left the pump running and hustled inside. Luis was on shift, as always. Skinny kid, bad mustache, eyes permanently half shut from too many graveyard shifts. "Evening, Jackson," he said, without looking up from his phone. "Or morning. Whatever." "Got anything that qualifies as food?" I asked. He jerked his chin at the hot case. "Those nuggets were born this millennium," he said. "Can't say the same for the taquitos." I grabbed coffee and a plastic tub of nuggets and headed back out with the cup warming my fingers. The lot looked sharper in the cold, every surface glazed. Vapor from my breath seemed to hang too long. I rounded the concrete island that held Pump 6 and stopped so fast I sloshed coffee on my knuckles. My truck was leaving. Unit 714, White Cascadia, Midwest haulage on the door. My name, J. Ward, stenciled under the window. The marker lights glowed soft amber along the trailer. Reverse lights clicked off as the rig eased out of the bay and began to pull forward. The nozzle still hung from the pump. The fuel cap on my saddle tank was screwed in tight, and my keys were digging into my palm. "Hey!" I shouted. "Hey! What the hell?" My voice bounced off chrome and concrete. The truck's brake lights flared for a second, then released. It kept rolling toward the exit. I ran. My boots slid on the thin skin of ice. The coffee flew from my hand and exploded on the pavement, hot liquid steaming against black glass. I skidded into the side of the trailer hard enough to rattle my teeth, then pushed off, lungs burning, heart punching at my ribs. I caught the cab just as it eased past the storefront windows. "Stop!" I screamed, slapping the door. "Get out of my truck!" The driver turned his head. I saw my own face look back at me. Same crooked nose I'd broken in high school. Same white scar along my jaw from a snapped bungee. Same too long dark hair shoved under the beanie my daughter had given me, the stupid one that said, "World's okayest dad," in peeling letters. I was wearing that hat. I'd left it on the dash 10 minutes ago. I smiled a little. Not friendly, not mocking. Just a small, satisfied curve of the mouth, like he'd finally gotten exactly what he wanted. Then he looked forward again and steered out of the lot. I got a hand on the grab bar and nearly lost my feet as the cab lurched over a pothole. For a second I hung there, boots sliding, body yanked along. The side mirror sliced past my shoulder close enough to brush my jacket. If I'd pulled the door open, I might have climbed up and tackled him. Instead, my fingers slipped on the ice-slick steel. I staggered back, hit the ground on my ass, and watched Unit 714 roll onto the frontage road. The left blinker flashed twice. The truck merged up the ramp, taillights winking through the fog, then disappeared into the wet dark. I sat on the freezing concrete, coffee burning my skin, where it soaked through my jeans, my keys clutched so tight my fingers hurt. "Jackson." Luis's voice came from behind me. "You okay, man?" I turned. He stood in the doorway, apron on, expression somewhere between confused and afraid. "You just see that?" I demanded. "You see who was driving my truck?" Luis blinked, then looked from me to the empty lane where 714 had been. "What truck?" he asked. "The White Cascadia that just left," I shouted, My truck. You know my truck, man. I park in the same spot every time. Luis shook his head slowly. You walked in here on foot, he said. You had your backpack on. You asked if the sidewalks were going to be an ice rink by morning. You paid cash for coffee. You didn't pull in a rig. I didn't ring any fuel. He held up the last receipt. Credit sale, pump 3, Ford F-150. The pump number over my head read 6. The hose hung empty. The pad around it was dry. My truck's spot was bare. Up on the interstate, a cluster of headlights slid through the mist. One of the sets was a white tractor trailer in the right lane. As it passed the plaza, the cab tilted slightly, like whoever was driving had looked over. Cold slid down my spine like a wet knife. I grabbed my phone. 911, what is your emergency? The dispatcher asked. A semi just left the Red Rooster Plaza north of Wichita, I said. Unit 714, Midwest haulage. I think my truck was stolen. Northbound on I-35. I can give you the plate. She took the information in the calm, measured way they all do. Asked for my name, my date of birth, my location. I gave it all. When she asked how the truck was taken, I hesitated. The driver looked like me, I said. Exactly like me. There was a tiny pause. Sir, are you in danger right now? She asked carefully. I don't know, I said. I think I just watched myself steal my own life. A county deputy pulled into the lot, light bar painting the wet asphalt red and blue. He planted his hat on his head as he stepped out, breath steaming. Mr. Ward, he asked. Deputy Miller. You the one who called about a stolen semi? That's me, I said. He looked around the empty row of diesel pumps, then at my Honda sitting alone by the side lot. You drive in that? He asked. Normally I drive a truck, I said. White Cascadia. Says Midwest haulage on the door. Says my name under the window. You're going to tell me you don't see it. He didn't, because it wasn't there. Miller took my statement in the cab of his SUV with the heater blasting. He asked the right questions, wrote careful notes, then sat back and rubbed his face. Jackson, he said, how long you been on the road today? Left Oklahoma City at 4, I said. 10-hour break before that. I'm fine. Any medication? Anything to drink? Coffee, I said, and a piece of something that might have once been chicken. The radio crackled. All units be advised. Multiple vehicle collision northbound I-35 at mile marker 193, involving tractor trailer. Lanes partially blocked. Miller and I locked eyes. What mile would you be at right about now if you hadn't stopped? He asked. 193, I said. He picked up the mic. Dispatch, this is 12, he said. Confirm the semi at 193 is Midwest haulage unit 714. A few seconds of static, then another voice. 12, this is 45 on scene. Affirmative on 714, Midwest haulage. Tractor's on its side, heavy front-end damage. We're working on getting the driver out. My fingers went numb around the cup. What's his condition? Miller asked. Unresponsive, 45 said. Extraction ongoing. Doesn't look good. Miller looked at my hands, at my face, then at the empty lot. Stay here, he said. I'm taking you to the hospital. They put me in a cubicle at St. Francis with a paper bracelet that read, Ward, Jackson, and poked me full of needles. A tired doctor asked me to follow his finger with my eyes, squeeze his hands, tell him what year it was, who the president was, whether I knew where I was. You appear neurologically intact, he said. No signs of head trauma. You're anxious, which is fair. So tell me again. You saw someone who looked like you take your truck. Then you learned a man with your name and ID crashed that same truck 10 miles up the road. Yes, I said. And you swear you weren't in 2 places at once. If I could be, I'd have fewer late loads, I said. He left. Nurses came and went. Somewhere, a heart monitor shrieked and then cut to a flat tone. My phone buzzed. Unknown caller. The screen read. I answered. Jackson. A voice said. My voice. Not echo. Not recording. My cadence, my drawl, with a raw edge scraped across it. I swallowed. Who is this? I asked. You know, he said. You watched me drive away. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The hallway outside my curtain felt thin. You crashed at 193, I said. They said you were unresponsive. I've done that a lot of times, he said. Doesn't always stick. There was a sound in the background, a slow beeping and a hiss, like oxygen through plastic. What are you? I whispered. Wrong question, he said. Try when. My hand tightened on the phone. When then? I said. Every version of you that didn't stop for coffee, he said. Every time you told yourself I'll fuel up later, I'll eat when I get there, I'll beat the ice, just one more hour. The stretch between Red Rooster and 193 has a long memory. Pile enough almosts on top of each other, and the road starts making copies to see which one sticks. That's insane, I said. So is watching yourself bleed out under your own steering wheel, he said. I've seen that one a few times too. Someone outside my cubicle said my name. The curtain stirred. I looked. No one there. You took my truck, I said. You tried to take my run. Why? You think I wanted to? He asked. You think I like feeling bone-crushing metal over and over? You left me there, Jackson. One of you did. Maybe more. You saw the ice, saw the time, did the math, and chose the log over the gut. The night you finally decided to get out and walk inside instead, something had to stay in the seat. The room seemed to tilt. I didn't know, I said. Of course you didn't, he said. You never remember the versions where you don't walk away. That's my job. I remember all of them. His breath rattled. You got a daughter, he added. 9 years old. She bought you a stupid hat you wear anyway. She deserves the copy of you that made it inside for coffee. A nurse flipped a chart somewhere nearby. The monitor in the next bay beeped steadily, then skipped. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing, he said. I already took the hit for you. You've got a clean path out, for now. I just needed you to know there was a cost. So next time you feel the wheel pulling you past an exit when your eyelids feel like lead, you'll remember there's already a Jackson who didn't pull off. The line crackled. Don't try to find me, he said. Don't sit up at 2 a.m. reading crash reports until they pull you back in. Live the version you got. Are you alone? I asked. Out there? He laughed softly. Highways are never empty, he said. You just don't always see who's driving with you. The call dropped. No service blinked on the screen. That night they kept me for observation on a hard plastic recliner in a corner of the ER. Every time I drifted, I saw taillights hanging in the fog just ahead of my bumper, my own logo glowing faint on the trailer, never getting closer, never falling behind. Once I jerked awake, heart hammering, sure I'd heard my Jake brake rattling the ceiling tiles. A nurse noticed. Bad dream, hun? She asked. Bad road, I said. She hesitated, then touched the edge of my bracelet. My dad drove, she said. Regional mostly. He used to say some nights felt crowded, like there were more trucks out there than you could see, like the lane was full of things that already happened. What happened to him? I asked. She didn't look at me. He stopped listening to that feeling, she said. They named a memorial sign after him on 99. I hate driving past it. Feels like the road is bragging. When I finally stepped out into the hospital parking lot, the sky was a washed-out gray, and the world felt too bright. Every passing semi on the overpass made me flinch. Half of me expected to see my own truck up there again, frozen mid-slide, forever almost crashing without ever finishing the job. It wasn't. Just strangers, going where they were going, unaware that not everyone who takes that stretch of interstate belongs to the same version of the night. I told myself I'd be one of the ones who lived, and for once, I listened harder than the logbook. The bracelet on my wrist tightened, the little adhesive strip sealing without anyone touching it. Someone had written, "Discharge. Home," in quick block letters. Miller drove me back to Red Rooster when the sun came up. The lot looked ordinary again. My old spot by Pump 6 was empty. My car sat where I'd left it, thin frost tracing the glass. He killed the engine. "You got anybody to call?" he asked. "Someone who needs to hear your voice today?" "My kid," I said. "Call her," he said, "before somebody else calls with a different story." I went home for a while. I cooked real food. I walked my daughter to school. I lay awake and heard invisible tires hissing past on wet pavement outside my window, even when the street was empty. Eventually, the money ran thin, and the road called again. Different company, different tractor, different lanes. But whenever I pass a place that feels like Red Rooster, some glowing box by the interstate in the small hours, I listen hard. If the clock on the dash hangs on one time a little too long, if the pumps look too bright against the dark, if I catch the shape of my own beanie in a cab window that shouldn't be able to reflect me, I keep driving. There are enough versions of me stuck out there replaying the night I didn't listen. This one is going to try very hard not to trade places with them. Story number 8. The Night the Dispatcher Who Died. 10 years ago sent me a route directly into hell. By the time the first message came through, my dispatcher had been dead for exactly 9 years, 3 months, and 6 days. I know because he died on my birthday. I was backing into a dock at a frozen food warehouse in Sioux Falls when the Qualcomm in my cab chimed with that old clipped tone it used to use before the last software update, a tone no one had heard in almost a decade. New route assignment. Urgent. From dispatch. Rick. My stomach dropped so hard I felt it in my toes. Rick had been my night dispatcher when I first hired on, with Double Star Freight. Big guy with a beard like a mountain man, voice like gravel, always drinking gas station energy drinks. Night. I turned 32. He had a heart attack in the office, died right there at his desk. They found him slumped over the console, with the headset still on. I touched the screen with a fingertip that didn't feel connected to my hand. The message opened. Load 8874. Medical priority. Pickup location. 17 miles east on Route 28. Do not follow GPS. Follow PIN only. ETA 0214. Driver, Mike Darby. I froze. Mike Darby was me, and the ETA was 1 minute from now. 0214. My dash clock read 0213. No way, I whispered. No damn way. I looked out the windshield. Snow blew sideways under the orange glow of the warehouse yard lights. My trailer was still in the dock, reefer humming, doors sealed. The load wasn't even finished being offloaded. The Qualcomm chimed again. Mike, do not ignore this. Start driving now. I scrambled for the radio handset, as if a CB from the 1970s could talk sense into a dead man. Breaker 19, I said, voice trembling more than I liked. Anyone in Sioux Falls yard hear a ghost pinging my Qualcomm? A long hiss. Someone laughed. Someone else cursed about the cold. Nobody said yes. Another chime. Mike, you are already late. Go, go, go. The letters glitched across the screen, stretching, repeating, jittering like a heartbeat giving out. I mashed the power button on the Qualcomm. The screen went black. Relief washed through me like a warm wave. until it blinked back on by itself. Full brightness. No boot sequence, just a map. A map I had never seen before. A thin yellow road, twisting east into darkness. No road number, no landmarks. Just a pulsing red pin on the end of a broken-looking line, like someone had drawn it with a shaking hand. And under it, pickup location, Green Mouth. Etta, 0214. What the hell is Green Mouth? I muttered. And why did the words make my skin crawl like ants? The Qualcomm buzzed violently, skittering against the dash. Drive. Do not make me come get you. My blood turned to ice. Rick used to say that. Whenever a driver ignored him, don't make me come get you. Joking, teasing, except he was dead. I threw open the door, boots hitting the frozen gravel so hard it shocked my knees. The cold slapped my face. I slipped once, caught myself, sprinted through the snow to the warehouse door, and pounded on the metal panel. Open up, I yelled. We're done. Lock it up. Shut the trailer. A forklift operator cracked the door open. You okay, Mike? He asked. No, I snapped. What's east on Route 28? He frowned. There is no Route 28 east. 28 goes west. Nothing east? I insisted. No side roads, no clinics, no... He shook his head. Nothing but fields and old windbreaks. You good, man? I wasn't. Something was wrong with the air, wrong with the silence, wrong with the night itself. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out with numb fingers. Unknown number. I answered. No greeting, just breathing. Slow, heavy, familiar. Mike. The voice was gravel rubbed against steel. My vision tunneled. Rick? I whispered. A low chuckle. Wet. Close. Too close. You're late, he rasped. I told you, don't ignore. Don't run. Go to the pin. You're dead, I hissed. You died in the office. I was at your funeral. I carried your casket. Yes, he said calmly. And you'll carry another tonight. Now get in the cab. Something moved behind me. I spun. My truck headlights were on. I hadn't turned them on. The left blinker flashed. I swallowed hard. Rick, I said slowly, if this is some sick joke. Jokes are for the living, he said. And you're not. Not if you stay where you are. Drive, Mike. You've got one chance. Miss this pickup and you won't live to miss another. The line dropped. The warehouse worker poked his head out again. Everything good? He asked. I lied. Yeah. I climbed back into the cab. My hands shook as I buckled in. The Qualcomm screen glowed like an open eye. The pin pulsed. Go. I pulled out. I should have turned west, toward the highway, toward lights and safety and any direction, except what waited in the dark. I turned east. The snow changed as soon as I passed the last warehouse lamp. It didn't fall down. It drifted sideways, as though the air was moving in long, slow breaths. The road narrowed. The truck's headlights seemed swallowed. The fences ended. The mile markers vanished. After 10 minutes, I checked the clock. 2:14. Still. I clicked the dash light. The second hand on my watch wasn't moving. A static hiss filled the cab. The CB flickered to life. Mike. That voice. Deep, crushed, wrong. I'm right behind you. My eyes snapped to the mirrors. Nothing. Then, a shape. Far back. Headlights too high, too wide. A cab that looked bent, like the frame had been twisted. Then the shape blinked out when I blinked. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles cracked. Rick, I said aloud, what do you want? The CB hissed again. You, I want you. And then, closer. I never finished your training. The road dipped suddenly. The world swallowed the beam of my headlights in a sheer black throat ahead. The Qualcomm chimed softly, almost gently. Enter Green Mouth. No, I whispered. No, no, no. The CB crackled. Too late, Rick growled. You're here. The road ended. Not sharply, not with a sign. It just opened. A wide, circular depression in the earth. Black soil, no snow, no grass. Just bare, raw ground shaped like a giant had pressed its thumb into the world. At the center sat a building that didn't look real. A barn. Missing boards. Roof collapsed inward. But a single light glowed from a doorway, shaped like a stretched human mouth. Long, horizontal, wrong. Green light spilled out of it, like rot, like sickness, like old infection. My truck rolled toward it, as if something under the wheels pulled. The CB screeched. "I'm here, Mike." Another voice now. Whispered. Dozens of voices layered. Dead channels. Dead drivers. Dead everything. "Come inside." I slammed the brakes. The wheels locked. The truck skidded, slid, and came to rest inches from the mouth. The light pulsed. Something moved inside. Something big. Something hungry. I reached for the shifter, ready to throw it into reverse and floor it, when something knocked on my passenger door. One single deliberate knock. I turned my head, and I saw a face pressed to the glass. My own face, but melted, grinning too wide, teeth too long, eyes full of green light. A voice that was almost mine said, "Delivery for Green Mouth?" The thing at the window smiled wider when I didn't answer. The lips, my lips, peeled back too far, tearing at the corners without bleeding. Teeth like wet glass glinted in the green light. The skin around the eyes stretched taut, as if something much larger inside was pushing forward, trying on my face like a mask, 2 sizes too small. It tapped again. Knuckles, slow and polite, on the glass of my own passenger door. "Mike," it said, voice muffled through the pain but clear enough. "You gonna make me stand out here all night? We got product to move." I couldn't move. Every instinct screamed, throw it in reverse, grind gears, bury the pedal, let the engine tear itself apart if it meant putting distance between me and that doorway. Except I wasn't touching the brakes anymore, and the truck wasn't rolling back. The dash lights flickered. On the Qualcomm, the message thread scrolled without my input. Arrived at Green Mouth, awaiting driver check-in. Driver, Mike Darby, present. The face at the window pressed, closer. The nose flattened, the eyes warped. A long crack spidered across the glass where my own forehead met it, as if someone were leaning against it from both sides at once. "I can't open the door," I heard myself say, voice thin. "I won't." "Sure you will," it answered. "You always do. Eventually. Why make it messy?" It lifted its right hand, held up something between 2 fingers. My beanie, the one I'd left on the passenger seat. "World's okayest dad," in peeling letters. It dangled from the thing's grip like bait. "How'd you get that?" I whispered. "This isn't the first time you've been here," it said patiently. "You just don't like to remember the nights you don't drive away." The CB hissed. Under the static, another voice slid through. "Ricks. Sign in and drop, Mike," he rasped. "You know how this works. In, out, no nonsense. Don't leave the door hanging open. You'll let things out." "Things?" I croaked. "Roots," he said. "Ghost loads. Accidents that haven't happened yet. Accidents that already have. It all comes here to be sorted. You think that pileups just disappear? The road sends its leftovers somewhere." The face at the window tilted. "You brought one tonight," it said. "A good one. Multi-vehicle, icy bridge, 4 semis, 7 cars, at least 3 that don't get out. You should be proud. You almost made it perfect." "I haven't crashed," I said. "I'm right here, in the cab, alive." "For now," the thing said. Its smile flattened. Without the grin, the features settled into something closer to my own again. I was looking at myself the way I look in motel bathroom mirrors at 3 a.m. Sallow, tired, half a step from giving in. "You don't get it, do you?" it asked softly. "You drove that wreck 100 times. Every time you ran hot on black ice. Every time you said, 'One more hour, I can nap when I unload.' Every near miss carved a groove. Tonight you finally slipped in deep enough that the road could send the whole mess here, all at once." It tapped the beanie against the glass. "Greenmouth eats weather like that," it added. "Chews it up, spits out versions." "I'm not feeding anything," I said, but it came out more like a plea than a promise. "You already did." Rick cut in over the CB. "Question is, you gonna take what's left of you and leave, or let the mouth decide which part it keeps?" The green light pulsed through the doorway. It didn't strobe like a lamp. It throbbed, like something alive in the barn was breathing slow and deep, lungs pushing light instead of air. Shapes moved in that glow. Tall, thin, too many joints. I shut my eyes, counted. 1, 2, 3. When I opened them again, the shapes were closer. Silhouettes against the inside of the door, long shadows stretching toward the truck like fingers reaching under a doorframe. The keys in the ignition wiggled, metal pinging. My hand moved toward them on its own. "Don't," I whispered to myself. "Let go, Mike," the reflection said. "For once in your life, let someone else take the hit." My fingers brushed the keys and kept going, past them, to the passenger lock. My hand closed around it. Cold metal dug into my palm. I felt my muscles strain, as if something were pulling my arm down, trying to force the lock open. I thought of Paige, 9 years old, gap-toothed grin, handing me that stupid hat and saying, "Now everyone will know you're at least okay at dadding, right?" I pictured her face when someone in a uniform knocked on her mom's door. I slammed my elbow into the door instead. Pain flared. The grip broke. My hand bounced away from the lock. "No!" I shouted, not sure who I was yelling at. The mirror face snarled. The glass bowed inward. Little feathers of frost crawled around the edges where skin met window, like its breath was freezing on both sides. "You think you get to choose?" it hissed. "You're freight, Mike. Same as what you haul. You go where you're sent." In the mirror, my own eyes flashed green. Just for a heartbeat. Just enough. I grabbed the wheel, turned it hard right. The steering column fought me, stiff as if jammed. The tires groaned on something that wasn't exactly dirt, wasn't exactly stone. A deep rumble rolled through the frame like distant thunder. The front bumper scraped sideways along the lip of the depression. The whole truck juddered. Inside the barn, something roared. It wasn't a sound I have human words for. It was metal, screaming across ice. It was the noise tires make when they blow at 70. It was every driver I've ever heard on a bad night saying, "Oh God," in the same breath. A smell poured out of the doorway. Rotten coolant, old blood, burned hair. The tang of 100 crash scenes layered over each other. The mirror face shattered. Not the glass. Him. His features split like a reflection in a disturbed pond, fragments sliding sideways, smearing. Under my own skin, there was something pale and meatless trying to push through, all tendons and hunger. It pressed against the invisible barrier of the window and couldn't get out. For the first time, it looked afraid. "Rick!" it shrieked. "He's off the line!" "Turn the wheel, Mike!" Rick roared over the CB. "Harder, now!" I did. Every tendon in my arms screamed. Something under the truck gave way, with a crack, like breaking bone. The left front corner dropped. For a horrifying second, I thought I'd rolled it into the pit after all. Then the tire caught something solid. The cab lurched. We pivoted away from the doorway. Back end swinging. Trailer skidding. The green light flared. bright enough to paint the snow lime, as the door stretched wider, like a mouth trying to widen for a slipping meal. I floored it. The engine howled. The world went sideways, then straightened. The depression fell away in the side mirror, a black circle shrinking behind me. In its center, the barn collapsed in on itself like a lung deflating. The green light died. The CB gave one last ear-splitting squeal and went dead. So did the Qualcomm. The screen went black. No pin, no messages, no map. I drove. I don't know how long. At some point, the narrow lane widened into a county road, with real ditches and real fence posts. A mile marker appeared, half buried in drift. 28 west, it read. The snow fell straight down again. My watch ticked. 2:15. Once. Twice. The second hand moved. By the time I hit an actual highway intersection, my legs were shaking so bad I had to stand on the brakes with both feet to keep from rolling into cross traffic. I pulled into the first lit truck stop I saw. Not a blank pylon. Not a dead plaza. A real branded place with ugly yellow light, and a guy in a reflective vest cursing at a fuel cap. I killed the engine. Sat there, hands welded to the wheel. The Qualcomm pinged. My heart almost left my chest. The message on the screen was from Night Dispatch. The real one. Mike, you okay? You dropped off GPS for 20 min. We got a glitch notice. Call if you need. I stared at it. Typed with fingers that barely obeyed. Route issue. Possible bad map data. Does our system have any location called Greenmouth? The typing dots blinked. Came back. Negative. No such place in DB. You hauling out of Sioux Falls still? I looked in the mirror. My trailer doors were sealed. The warehouse's wax crayon mark was still scribbled across the handle. I hadn't picked up anything. I hadn't delivered anything. Except maybe myself. Yeah, I replied. Still here. Disregard glitch. I'm taking a 10. I turned the unit off at the breaker, pulled my personal phone out. No missed calls. I scrolled to Rick's old number. Disconnected. I scrolled to his obituary. There he was. Same beard, same eyes, same dates. Died at his desk doing what he loved, the write-up said. I shut the screen off. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I started to drift, I felt the truck lean forward, as if the nose were sliding toward a dark opening again. I woke with my hand clamped around the door handle, knuckles white, like I'd been trying to keep someone else from opening it from the outside. Morning came eventually, gray and dull. The world looked boring again. Trucks fueling, drivers stretching, somebody scraping ice off a reefer door with a shovel. I checked the Qualcomm. No ghost routes, no dead dispatchers, just a new assignment to drag empty trailers back south. For a while, I told myself it was a stress hallucination. Lack of sleep, too much caffeine, minimum wage warehouse coffee poisoning my brain. Then, about a month later, I was scrolling trucking forums on my phone in a petro booth, killing time, when a thread title caught my eye. Anyone ever get a Greenmouth route? The OP wrote about a dead-end farm road in Oklahoma that wasn't on any map, a barn with a weird glow, and a dispatcher text from a guy who died in a forklift accident 5 years earlier. The details weren't the same, but the bones were. Dozens of replies, some jokey, some not. One said, "Never take a pin that says Greenmouth. Doesn't matter who sends it. Doesn't matter what they offer. It's the place the road dumps all the crashes it doesn't want to own." Another, buried 3 pages down, from a handle called Rick Night Shift. "We don't send those. The road does. It likes drivers who think their log is more real than their instincts. If you get the invite and you're reading this, ignore it. Nobody who checks in there comes back the same." I clicked his profile. Account deleted. Sometimes, when I'm driving in the small hours and the snow starts moving sideways again, I'll hear a faint chime from the dash. No notifications, no lights, just that sound. Sometimes the GPS screen will flicker, and for one heartbeat, a nameless yellow spur will appear off my route, ending in a pin with no label. Then, it'll be gone. On my worst nights, when the ice starts to feather the mirrors and I can feel the road underneath me thinking about which version of this run it wants, the CB will spit a second of static that sounds almost like my own voice saying, "Don't make me come get you." When that happens, I do something I never used to do. I slow down. I pull off. I let the bad weather eat someone else's schedule. Because there is a place out there that looks like a sinkhole in the world, with a barn full of light that isn't light. And somewhere inside it, beneath the collapsed roof, something vast and hungry is chewing on all the nights. Truckers didn't listen to the little voice that said, "Stop." I've seen the edge of its mouth. I've seen my own face pressed to the glass, trying to open the door. That's enough. My job is to get the load there and get home alive. I'm not about to let some dead dispatcher and a hole in the world talk me into delivering myself again.